spoken in the Kathamrita of his vision of Sita Mata walking up from the Ganga Ghat and through the gardens of the Dakshineshwar temple. He says that I suddenly saw a beautiful lady stepping up from the Ganga Ghat and walking through the temple. I could not recognize her. I recognized her only when all the monkeys in the neighborhood, until today we know that those of us who have visited Dakshineshwar know that there are a lot of monkeys over there. When all the monkeys suddenly came and prostrated at her feet, then I recognized that she was Sita Devi. So Sri Ramakrishna has spoken of this incident. However, in spite of all these, it is true that Rama worship was always present and is today also present, but is not a dominant feature of the religious landscape of Bengal. So there are various reasons to that. I will not be going into that reason. But I will just conclude by saying that Krittivas has interlinked the Vaishnava and the Shakta heritage of Bengal in various ways, and he has broken down the mutual exclusivity between the two religious sampradayas of that period. He had consciously adapted the Ramayana to the Bengali cultural ethos of the time and also the psyche of the people of the region, and had brought Ramayana close to the common people. And today it is necessary to give due importance to the creators of all these regional versions who have not only imparted diversity and regional flavor to the Vaishnava landscape of today, but have also strengthened and preserved the Ramayana culture that has shaped this country and its people. Thank you. And I also thank the INDICA Academy and our curator, Nagrajji, for giving me the opportunity to present this in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As expected, this was a wonderful paper from... You please give the mic to her. Now there is no more conflict between Jai Shri Ram and Jai Mata Di.
Hello, sir.
In Bengal. Can we expect?
Sir, it is not my question, it is my query. I have been hearing your papers. A query is arise in my mind. If you are a historian, therefore, you mentioned here that the Krittivasa was a 15th century poet of Bengal, and he translated the Ramayana into Bengali language. In the translation of the regional language, actually Ramayana is incorporated with the oral tradition of Ramayana also. Have you think as a historian, the Krittivasa take the snap, take the folk elements, just folk tales and other source, just you mean, you mentioned that Akal Bodhan. Actually, I have doing my field works in Bengal, Odisha and Assam. In my DLit thesis, oral tradition of Ramayana in the Bengal, Assam and Odisha, it is a comparative study. I have finished the field work. I have got the folk tales and other proverbs about the Akal Bodhan and others, Ohiravan and Mahiravan ka folk tales I have collected from your places also. Therefore, I want to ask you, as a historian, do you feel that the influence of Vaishnavism on Krittivasa, it is quite natural, because it is 15th century, last part of 14th and 15th century, there is a wave of Bhakti movement in whole India.
He has already mentioned it.
Yeah, therefore, it is maybe one factor, influence of Vaishnavism, but I think you have confessed about the oral tradition of Ramayana, which is pan-Indian background. It is always before Valmiki, there was also Ramayana tradition in oral stage. Valmiki collected the floated ballads from folk society.
Yeah.
After he is a
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
See, there is Adbhuta Ramayana also, which has the Shakta elements. But there the Sita becomes Shakti, really. So Sita is even portrayed more powerful than Rama. But going by your description of Kritibasa, this is also has Shakta elements. But the Shakti herself is shown and not Sita. Do you think this is due to some specific cultural trends of the era?
We can't say, actually.
I think the way Krithivas has portrayed, as I said in the last part of the paper.
Please come.
Yeah.
You may come here.
As I already mentioned in the last part of the paper, Krittivasa, even though of course Ram is an avatar of Vishnu and everyone is doing bhakti to him, but still Sri Rama, Sita, Lakshmana, all of these characters, perhaps for the sake of making them close to the people and bringing them closer into the psyche of the people, they have been shown almost as we can say next door characters. They have been shown as ordinary people like us. They have been portrayed in such a way, and that is why some people take this example to say that Sri Rama is not worshipped as a god in Bengal, but he is just another character, but not as a god in Bengal. Some people use Krittivasa for this, though Krittivasa did not have any such thing. But Krittivasa portrays Ram, Sita, Lakshman in a way that they are very ordinary, soft-spoken people, as we have seen that Sita is blushing and she is getting embarrassed and all that. So it is not that she is portrayed as a Devi or that Ram is portrayed as someone very Shaktishali or someone like that. They are portrayed as ordinary people like us, more or less, who are, of course, avatars. So that is the way he is showing.
In the 14th century, Madhavkundali of Assam, who translated the Assamese Ramayana, and after 100 years, Krittivasa is translated.
In all the
Therefore,
languages.
it is influenced by Madhavkundali also. Madhavkundali is the first poet of, second to Tamil, and first poet of Northeast India, who first translated the provisional languages into Ramayana. Therefore, I think the Krittivasa is influenced by also Madhavkundali.
Yes, as I said that he has to be placed in the context of the Vaishnava Bhakti, sweeping India, throughout India.
No, in Andavan, Vaishnava Bhakti is incorporated with Ramayana by Anantakundali. Anantakundali is the disciple of Shankadeva. As a disciple of Shankadeva, when all people, actually Madhavkundali is a literary person. Madhavkundali translated into Assamese Ramayana as a literature. Daipavani Muni to Lokika Devata. He explained it. Daipavani Namuna, Lokika Devata. It is literature. Well, in the Vaishnava age, Madhavkundali, Ramayana is popular among the folk people. Then Shankadeva is think that Madhavkundali will be lost. Therefore, yes,
Next paper by Sri Bhargava Raghava. The topic is Sri Bhargava Raghaviyam, a philosophical perspective by Professor Brahada Prasanna. She is our local host. Actually, she is the one who made all arrangements for us when we are here. She is from the Sanskrit department of this college, and this is a book by Jagadguru Ramabhadracharya. She is going to talk about that book from a philosophical perspective.
नमस्सभायै सभापतिभ्यश्च अद्य अहं श्री भार्गवराघवीये सिद्धान्तपक्षं व्यवस्थापनं करोमि। वेदकालात् आरभ्य अद्य नवीनकालपर्यन्तं साहित्यलोके विद्यमानानां सर्वकलासु वेदसाराः भवत्येव। तदहं भार्गवराघवीये किञ्चित् प्रकाशनं करोमि। प्रथमतः संस्कृत काव्यानाम् उत्पत्तेः बीजं वेदे प्राप्यते। संस्कृत काव्यानां प्रथमकिरणं सर्वप्रथमं ऋग्वेदे दृश्यते। तस्य अनेकानि सूक्तानि अथवा मन्त्रा ईदृशा सन्ति यैः कवेः प्रतिभायाः सुन्दरः परिचयः प्रस्तूयते। रामस्य अयनम् इति रामायणम् अर्थात् भगवतः श्रीरामचन्द्रस्य निवासस्थानं चरित्रवर्णनं च यत्र सुविराज्यते तदेव रामायणं कथ्यते। After this, I wish to deliver my paper in English for the lucid understanding of everybody from all parts of India. I hope it would be easy. So, let me continue with English. Actually, my paper is just a six pages, and I had very little time, and I should first thank Nagaraj Paturi sir and Srinivasan sir for giving all of us from this college an opportunity to present a paper. On behalf of everybody, my colleagues and the staff of my college, especially our VP sir, who is also giving a special talk tomorrow, we thank you. I thank you both and the organization INDICA for giving us an opportunity, sir. And I started about my paper. It was just a six pages which comprised totally about this book Bhargava-Raghaviyam. But today, before all of you, I feel to be like a toddler actually. And I knew nothing about Vaishnavism, and I have just dwelt in certain questions right from the morning, which all from what all I heard. You people induced me to think why philosophy is such extended in all parts of the world, especially in India. And where from it sprouted, I started thinking more about it, and why there is a need for preceptors. Now we have 12, our Matha, Andavan Ashramam has 12 preceptors, and all those portrays are placed here. Why such preceptors? And at last we have placed the photo of the Vaikunthanatha, and I understood after all hearing your speeches that all these preceptors lead us to that Almighty God. And as our HOD Dr. V. Raman sir told to place the Vaikunthanatha photo there nearer to the Acharya, I understood the meaning of why he told so. So why the need for a preceptor is required? Since I have also taken about an Acharya, this question sprouted in my mind. And above all, Rama, my favorite deity. What is the need for an incarnation? And why Ramayana is there? What is this purpose of this study Ramayana was all my question. Right from today morning, exactly after 10:30, after hearing all your papers actually one by one. So, with all mean knowledge of mine, I have just made a small PPT. And I wish to share this first shloka. Adhau Rama Tapovananu Gamanam Hatva Mrigam Kanchanam Vaidehi Haranam Jatayu Maranam Sugriva Sambhashanam Vali Nigrahanam Samudra Taranam Lankapurim Dahanam Paschat Ravana Kumbhakarna Mathanam Etaddi Ramayanam. In this single shloka, Eka shloka of Ramayana, hopefully everybody, it's new to me, but you have all recited along with. So with this single shloka, the whole of Rama is actually given to us. And Valmiki, who has told Yavas Tasyanti Giraya Saritas Chamahitale, Tavad Ramayana Katha Lokeshu Pracharishyati, has become true till date. Right from that day, till today, we all are speaking about Ramayana, and especially today, all perspectives, vivid, diversified languages in which Ramayana has been made. Before me, sir spoke from West Bengal, and even one more speaker, I happened to speak about Rama. So, till today, it is in vogue, and it is teaching us a lot, Ramayana especially. And while in search of the Sampradayas, I happen to see all of us are speaking about Gaudi Sampradaya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sampradaya, and etc. 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 But when I went in deep about the beginning of this Sampradaya, that is actually divided into 4 traits. One is Brahma Sampradaya, next is Lakshmi Sampradaya, then we have Rudra Sampradaya or Shiva Sampradaya, and we have Kumara Sampradaya. The beginning of the Vaishnavism Sampradaya is classified into 4 heads like this, and below this we have Madhva Sampradaya in Brahma Sampradaya for your understanding, and in Lakshmi Sampradaya we have Ramanuja Sampradaya and Sri Sampradaya, Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, one by name, and we have Rudra Sampradaya and Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, Vallabha Sampradaya in the 3rd category, and in 4th category we have Nimbarka Sampradaya, Nibadhya Sampradaya, and Sankati Sampradaya. So this is how it is classified, and under one head, under one roof, Vaishnavism, all these are actually classified, and we speak about everything individually, Nimbarkar, Vallabha, and Gaudi Sampradaya, etc. And now I have taken Lakshmi Sampradaya, which is also known as Sri Sampradaya, since it portrays Sita to be the prominent deity. And this is otherwise known as Ramananda Sampradaya, and this is said to be the biggest Sampradaya, since out of 56 classifications of Vaishnava Sampradaya, or that gates, Vaishnava gates, 52 Vaishnava gates are there in total, and 36 are being, it is being supported by Ramananda Sampradaya, which is popular in northern region of Bharatavarsha in India. It got its name Ramananda Sampradaya because the Jagadguru Ramananda, who was in the tradition of Lakshmi, that is making Sita, Bhagavati Sita, to be the prominent person, or that the first preceptor of this Sampradaya is said to be Bhagavati Sita, and Ramanandacharya came in that tradition, and hence this Sampradaya is named to be Ramananda Sampradaya. And there are many philosophers in this Sampradaya, and now there is a ever-living philosopher, a polyglot, a reformer, anything can be told under his name, Jagadguru Ramabhadracharya, who is living now. He is from 1950 to till date. So who is he? He was born in North India in 1950 during Makara Sankranti, and at the age of 2 months he was diagnosed with a eye problem. So till date he is physically challenged. He runs a Vikalanga Vishwavidyalaya, which is named to be Divyanga Vishwavidyalaya at present. He is running that, and exclusively he gives education for all those people who are physically challenged. And this Jagadguru, he has written many texts. Nearly he has written hundreds of books, and in that he writes in 22 languages, speaks in 22 languages, and especially he is expert in writing 14 languages. How could he write? Actually, he has his fellow followers to whom he dictates and who brings out this. He is with many honors like Tulasi Pitadishwara. Actually, I took a long list of his, Yes, he has many traits, like he is the founder and head of Tulasi Peeth, lifelong chancellor of Jagadguru Rambhadracharya Handicapped University. He is a philosopher, katha artist, writer, social reformer, and he has given Sanskrit commentaries on Prasthanatrayi, and he has done his PhD in Apaniniya, about grammar in Sanskrit. He is expert in Sanskrit grammar, Nyaya, Sahitya and Vedanta. And he has also been awarded with Bhanabhatta Puraskar, Vani Alankaranam Puraskar, Samskrita Mahamahaupadhyaya, Goswami Tulisidasa, Samarchana Sammanaha, Sri Vachaspati, etc., etc., Tulasi Puraskaraha, Devabhumi Puraskaraha. And all these been without thinking of his ailment, he has taken all such awards, and he is expert in Vedas, Vedangas, Itihasas, Puranas, grammar and everything. And to mention here in the on the go, he is one of the reason for the favor of judgment to India in Rama Janmabhoomi Ayodhya case, which we happened a couple of years before. He was one of the witness. I could say witness, but since he is physically challenged, I don't know whether to use the term witness. But having heard his statement, the case came to an end. He is the person whom I was speaking about. And that is the book which I have taken for my study. And this book is being published by Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the then Prime Minister of India, in 2002. And this book has won the Sahitya Akademi Award in the year 2005, and till date, probably a couple of years before till, it has received a cash prize of 27 lakhs. It has, merely the prize cash amount was 27 lakhs, apart from the Sahitya Akademi Award. So what is specific about this book, Sri Bhargava Raghaviyam? The first and foremost thing which I would like to mention is the dual avatara. One is Parashurama avatara, Bhargava, and Rama, who is the Raghava. So taking the clan, Bhargava from Bhrigu, Jamadagni's son, fourth son of Jamadagni, and Raghava, Dasharatha, Raghu's descendant. So this author, Jagadguru Ramabhadracharya, has mingled both the avatars into one. And for our better understanding and to help me out, which helped me to fix this topic philosophical perspective, the Atma and Paramatma concept has been, as up to my understanding, I have taken it from the book. Here Parashurama is instructed to surrender to Lord Rama, who is going to be born. So wherein in many of the places, I noticed that Parashurama is to be the Atma, a person like us. Since he is a Avesha Avatara, he becomes Avatara only when he is becoming furious. But Rama is a complete Purna Avatara. He is not so. So we people, we are tend to all Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. We will have all Krodha. Like that, Parashurama is depicted here, who is undergoing the fate of anger. And for that, he kills the Kshatriya Vamsa and he goes for all the Tirtha Yatras and all that. And at last, he is surrendering himself to the Lord Rama. So that is what is mentioned here in this book in 21 cantos, depicting the first book of 21st century. The author has written 101 shlokas in each chapter and totaling to 21 verses in total, all the 21 cantos. He has summed it to that thing. And in spite of this, he also gives the samskaras which we should follow in our day-to-day life, which is relating to the human life actually. And as I told earlier, Bhagavati Sita, the Lord Bhagavati Sita, she is the preceptor of Sri Sampradaya, and that has also been dictated by the author in one of his chapter. In chapter 10, he dictates that Imam Suta Lalaya Labda Labaha Sanchivinim Vaishnava Pungavanam. It is told that she is the defender of the Vaishnavites. These are the words authored by Jagadguru Ramabhadracharya as dictated by Parashurama to Janaka. Obviously, we need something for a better understanding, and hence Jagadguru Ramabhadracharya, I hope, has written this ocean of values into a Mahakavyam so that we will be easily understanding. So he is presented in that way. And also he has added Acharya Varyam Prathamam Anindyam Swam Brahma Vidyamiva Sarva Shaktim. He says, the beauty of the first preceptor of Sri Sampradaya, Bhagavati Sita, is the defender of Vaishnavites. She is blemishless, she is pioneer of austerity, and she is the form of power. So this is all been mentioned along in the Mahakavya for the easy understanding. And in the concept of this paper, I have understood all the Navavida Bhaktis which is portrayed in Bhagavata Puranam to be included in this Bhargava Raghaviyam paper. So as we all know, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam cha. All these are said to be the Navavida Bhakti. So here, in each and every instance, I could feel, or any reader, they could feel all the Navavida Bhaktis portrayed by the author, depicted by the characters, etc. Sorry. So, first beginning with Shravanam, since the author is physically challenged, he is making everyone, his fellow followers, to hear what he sings. So there, the Shravanam part gets fructified. And next is Kirtanam. Exclusively, there are two chapters, one singing the praise of Rama in 101 shlokas, and one chapter singing in praise of Sita for 101 shlokas. Apart from this, we have also in few places, in few chapters, Brahma singing the praise of Lord Rama as it is, and Jamadagni singing the praise of Lord Narayana, wanting for a son. So all these has been sung by various characters throughout the Mahakavyam. Smaranam. Actually, we all know that Parashurama is the fourth son of Jamadagni. And the author has given a reason why fourth son. Already he has three sons. Then why he should long for a fourth son? That was the question. And for that he gives the answer that as in there are four Vedas, this Rishi Jamadagni wishes to have the fourth son. So he prays, he makes, or he is in thinking of, he is into the dhyana about Narayana for begetting Narayana as itself his son. So there we could see the Smaranam part of the Bhakti. And Pada Sevanam. Parashurama as a ardent devotee and a disciple of Shiva, in one full chapter, he is just doing all his sevas to the Lord Shiva, he is doing. There we could see Pada Sevanam. And as it is, the Guru is being received by Dasharatha as in Ramayana, there also we could say Pada Sevanam for Guru, who is taking us to the Lord. Then Archanam. I'll complete in 2 minutes, sir. I have almost completed. Archanam also is being seen by singing the praise of Rama by Parashurama to Janaka. And Vandanam, we can see Rama and Sita from Mahendra mountain. Parashurama is singing. He is praying from there for being born in this world to bring end to the atrocity of for bringing an end to the atrocity of Ravana and as well as their Kartavirya Arjuna as Parashurama and here Rama. So Dasyam, we could see Brahma approaching Rama as a friend, asking him to come into the form of Rama itself as the son of Dasharatha in order to save the world. Sakyam, at last we could say Sakyam between Rama and Parashurama, where Rama embraces Parashurama and all these deviations from Valmiki Ramayana could be seen there. Last is Atma Sevanam, where as per the words of his Guru, Parashurama surrenders himself to Lord Rama. So ultimately this book totally, as in Kavya Prakasha, Kanta Samhitataya Upadesha Yuje as told, this Mahakavyam is giving various thoughts where we could see Navavida Bhakti and philosophical views Rama is described at one place as the Tilaka of Sita herself. So there Vaishnavisa Sampradaya, placing of the Tilaka in the forehead, why it is considered must, is told. And Parashurama goes to Tirtha Yatra, where therein all the holy pilgrimages has been mentioned. There we see Himalaya, we see Sri Ranga Kshetra, all the Kshetra he covers, wherein we see in all the Vaishnava Sampradaya that going to a temple is mandatorily followed. So many points I could make it a relevance with the Sampradaya which is injected through this Mahakavyam for the readers. So one who reads it clearly or understands it properly can make many note of the Sampradaya being stated by the author, which is actually the book is common for all. Since then, he has mentioned, he has mildly injected all the injections of the Vedas, Sampradaya following, everything has been injected in the text. So this is all about, and also to add Saguna Nirguna Upasa, without which we can't speak about Vaishnavism also is added. And Sharanagati, which I told you, the shloka is quoted here. And God accepts one who is surrendering is also stated when Rama accepts Parashurama. So through this, all the points of Vaishnavism has been injected to the readers. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Bruhadaji. That was a very eloquent presentation, I should say. She was very eloquent and interactive. This college is lucky to have such wonderful faculty. And I am also pleasantly surprised that Jagadguru Ramabhadracharya, with whom we are acquainted through our friend Sri Nityanand Mishra, he in South India, in Sri Rangam is so well known and you are studying him so well. That's surprising. The book you wanted to mention was Apaniniya Prayogas in Adhyatma Ramayana. That is his PhD work. He completed that PhD work in 19 days. 19 days. He finished his PhD work and submitted. In the Kashi, in Varanasi, the Pandita Mandali gave him the Navavyakarana Pandita and all the titles at the age of 19. So he, in spite of being physically challenged, he commands all the Shastras right from a very small age. And when there was a question of whether Tulasi mentioned Ayodhya's Babri attack or not, actually people were defending, saying that how can Tulasi talk because it is Ramacharit Manas. But in other works, he mentioned the Babri attack, and this was given as a witness in the court. That was what she was mentioning. That gave a very big fillip to the Ayodhya case in the court of law. So, with our eyes, we are not able to give any witness. Without them, he gave the witness. He stood as the witness in the court. Thank you very much for bringing all these things. Now we have from the same college another wonderful faculty, Aishwarya ji, presenting Jitanta Stotram.
Shri Ganeshaya. Hello. Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Namasabhayai. Atra agatebyah sarvebhyah panditavaryebyah krite mama hritpurvaka namaskaraah swagatancha. Aham Aishwarya Chandrasekharaah Samskrita Pracharya Padavyuttara evam Samshodhana Samskrita Vibhagah Srimad Andavan Kala evam Vaignanika Mahavidyalayah Sri Rangam Trichy. Asmin Mahan Sandarbhe Asmakam Kalashalayah Karyadarshi Shri Ammangi V. Balaji Mahodayam, Pramshubalam Dr. M. Pichaimani Mahodayam, Asmadiyaha Vibhaga Adhyaksham Vedanta Kesari, Shri Bhashya Ratnamani Dr. V. Raman Mahodayam cha Pranamya, Apicha Mama Dhanyavadam Vyahritya, Shri Ranganayika Amba Sameta, Shri Ranganatha Swaminaha, Anumatya Ashirvadena cha Mama Prakashana Patram Idam Prakatikaromi. अस्माकं भारतीय आस्तिक परंपरायां प्रप्रथमं गुरुवंदनेन अथवा देवतावंदनेन कार्यस्य प्रारंभः क्रियते. In our tradition, from here on it will be janaranjakam. It will be in English for everybody's ease of understanding. In our tradition, it is appropriate to begin anything with a benediction to one's guru or a deity of one's own choice. So let me begin with a small invocation. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. See, I took this benediction for two reasons. When I started off, I told it is either Guru Vandana or it is Devata Vandanam. It is appropriate to do Guru Vandanam because, as we have observed in Kabir's Zoha, Guru Govind, because it is Guru who shows Govind to the seeker. So here, Vasudeva Sutam is ideal because it is two in one. In fact, it is many in one. Not just appropriate to Vaishnavism, but Sri Krishna, considered to be the Paramatma himself, is also the Jagat Guru, the first Guru. That is why I took this benedictory verse for this presentation of mine. Before I start my presentation, I wish to take this opportunity to welcome one and all from the INDICA Academy, and also thank them for the opportunity conferred upon us for presenting papers in this juncture. And my namaskarams to all the scholarly people gathered here, especially with a special mention to Dr. S. Ramaratnam sir. Feeling honored and privileged to be presenting here when you're here, sir. Thank you. The topic that I've chosen for my presentation is Jitante Stotram. This Stotram is a special, one of its kind Stotram. It is not just any other Vaishnava Stotram which suits the topic and just take it. No, not like that. Because Jitante Stotram is it's an auxiliary part of the Rig Veda. So because it forms a part of the Veda, it has got the honor of a mantra also and a stotra also. So what is the definition? Let me give you. See, I am defining stotram and mantram here for a small reference. Stuyate anena iti stotram, by which you praise the deity. That is stotram. Mantram is something that protects one who keeps chanting or reciting it repeatedly. Mananat trayata iti mantram. So this has got the honor of both stotram as well as mantram, and that is why I have chosen this. And the title is justified, just like it is a very lucid shloka, and it also explains the Vaishnava concept in a very, very lucid way. As our secretary sir in the morning quoted that Vaishnavism, is it a way of life or is it a philosophy? So here I am concentrating only on the part of the way of life. How does a Vaishnava live, or how is he supposed to carry out his everyday life? As simple as that. So because it is very easy. And we also had a mention by I think Nagaraj Paturi sir in the morning that 66% of the Hindu population is Vaishnava population. This is also attributed to this one simple reason as well, which is its lucidity. You need not be born in a particular sect or a clan to be a Vaishnava. You can become a Vaishnava. It is followed as a religion. You can become a Vaishnava at any given point in time in your life if you choose to. So that is very simple and it is open to all. And that is the reason the population is like 66% because of its lucidity. I am only focusing upon the lucidity of this and how it works in Jitante Stotra with some special mention from the Bhagavad Gita, without which we cannot touch upon any of the philosophical or the doctrine related concepts. See, this is one of the Shan Margas ascribed by the great Adi Shankaracharya Bhagavad-pada. Of the 6 Margas, Vaishnavism, other Margas, you all very well know. This is Vaishnavism, and I have just mentioned one small word touching upon the grammar of the beautiful Sanskrit language, the Vishnoho idam matam Vaishnavam. All the Shanmargas for that matter are nothing but Tadhita Pratyaya Prayogas. So it is nothing but certain set of Pratyayas which explain the relationship between the source and the cause and the effect, or the source and the result. So here from Vishnu the word Vaishnava originated. So I have just mentioned this word here to throw a small glimpse about the beauty and the meaningful derivation of almost all the words in this particular rich language of ours. So in South India, there is a tradition that calls it Shri Vaishnavam, because Shri refers to Mangalam or goddess Lakshmi, who is the embodiment of all kinds of wealth. So because she is the eternal concept of Hari, it is called Shri Vaishnava, because they say that wherever Lakshmi's grace is there, we automatically have the grace of Lord Vishnu, and it is vice versa. So they are always together, so it is Shri Vaishnava. And the key concepts of Vaishnavism are Bhakti, devotion, and Prapatti or Sharanagati, which is surrender to God. The Jitante Stotra also explains only these two concepts, because devotion alone can lead to surrender. Once you are so devoted to somebody, it is very easy to surrender yourself to that object of devotion. So here it is the, as I said earlier, it is the Rigveda Keelam, and that is why it has the power of both the honor of both the mantra and stotra. So here we have 6 Jitante Stotras available so far, as in each Jitante Stotra has got further shlokas, verses inside them in varying numbers. And the manuscripts of it was originally found, and it is preserved in the Oriental Research Institute Library, Mysore. Commentaries, with regard to commentaries, because even if the original work is lost, commentaries are the key to unfold them. So the earliest commentator on Jitante Stotra is Sri Periyavachan Pillai, belonging to the 13th century, after which even Sri Periyavachan Pillai, we have got the commentary of only the first Jitante Stotra. The rest, we are clueless as to whether he did not do it or whether they are lost. So it is still under research. Maybe the manuscripts are found elsewhere in India or wherever. Modern scholars like Puttan Kottakam Srinivasacharya and Madhurantakam T. Veeraragavacharya, they have made commentaries on these stotras, and that book was published in 1958, and based on that book, my when I did my masters in Sanskritam in the University of Madras, it was my department head, Dr. S. Padmanabhan sir, who worked on this book based on these commentaries with translations in English and Tamil as well. So based on his notes, I have prepared my article. So basically, any doctrine or any philosophy advises or admits these 4 Purusharthas: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So the ultimate goal of this human birth is nothing but to attain moksha or liberation. Jitante Stotra also tells how one attains moksha by the worship of Lord Vishnu. Here I would like to mention that when we look at the Jitante Stotra, it keeps describing Lord Vishnu as one's father, mother, guru, friend, everything. So Vaishnavism does not restrict anybody from worshipping other deities, but it says that the worship of one deity with utmost devotion and surrender is enough by itself and is wholesome or complete by itself, wherein one can walk in the path of liberation or self-realization. That is the ultimate goal. The path is not important or hard and fast. So here the name is taken from the first shloka, which starts like Jitante Pundari Kaksha, Namaste Vishwabhavana, Namaste Suhrishikesha, Mahapurusha Purvaja. So traditionally, we've been knowing that the Trimurtis have three duties: creation, sustenance, and dissolution. It is attributed to Lord Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, respectively. But here in the Vaishnava tradition, all the three are attributed to one Lord, which is Sri Hari. So here it is mentioned Vishwabhavana, words like Vishwabhavana, Purvaja, they all indicate Ekas Tvamasi Lokasya Srashta, Samharakas Tatha, Adhyakshascha, Anumantacha, Gunamaya Samavritaha. So he is everything. He is the Lord, he is the protector, he is the destroyer of evil, he is the creator, and he is the controller of the universe. So here, when we just move on, this directly goes to the moksha aspect where it says samsara sagaram ghoram ananta klesha bhajanam tvameva sharanam prapya nistaranti manishinaha. See how to swim across the horrifying transmigratory ocean of existence, of repeated births and deaths, as Acharya used to observe, Bhaja Govindam. So when you hold tight the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, it takes you across the repeated samsara sagara, which is repeated cycles of births and deaths. So here now, it is now we come upon the key doctrine of Vaishnavism, which is Pita, Mata, Suhrud, Bandhu, Brata, Putra, Swamevahi, Vidya, Dhanancha, Kamyancha, Nanyat Kinchit, Tvaya Vina, Tvamcha Swami, Gurur, Mata, Pita, Cha Mama Madhava, Apitvam Bhagavan Brahman, Sharvashakro Maharshayaha, Manasa Karmana, Vacha, Yacheshta, Mama Nityashaha, Keshavaradhane Sasyat, Janma Janmantareshu Api. So he prays, the devotee prays that you are my everything, whatever I desire for, my Lord, my friend, everything, and even in this birth and in the births to come, let me remain at your service forever and forever. So this is called the Dasa Bhavaha, one key concept in this doctrine, which is called, here I would like to quote one of the Alvars. He is called Tondar Adipodi Alvar. So these Alvars are 12 in numbers who attained salvation, rather liberation, only through this Bhakti Yoga, only through devotion, this emotion. So in one of the Alvars, he is called Tondar Adipodi Alvar, because these people have this concept, like in other doctrines as well we have this, Dasa Dasoham. I am the servant of the servants of Lord Vishnu. So that is why he is called Tondar Adipodi Alvar. So he serves the servants of Vishnu. When we have the Dasa Bhava, it becomes much easier to come across the Kama Krodha, Ahankara and everything. So Sakalavaranaatita Kinkarosmi Tavanagha Punah Punah Kinkarosmi Tavaham Purushottama Sarveshu Deshakaleshu Sarvavasthasu Chachita Kinkarosmi Drishikesha Bhuyo Bhuyosmi Kinkaraha. He repeatedly says, I am your Kinkara. Kinkara here means servant. Kim karomi, what do I do for you? What do I do for you? At your service. It is like that. So when we have this servant bhava, it is a very easy way of existence. That is why I said the lucidity of this mata. Because when you are the doer of something, all the responsibility and all the headaches creeps in. When you just have to obey some orders, which is not easy, but when it is from the Lord, when you just obey it, it becomes much easier upon practice. Initially, it might sound very, very hard. oh, why should I keep obeying? What is this servant bhavana? But being a servant to God, it is actually ignorance is bliss. It is like that. Whatever is ordained, when we just nod our heads and do, eventually we find it very, very peaceful. And without this, I cannot. The time over? Yes, 2 minutes it will be over. I cannot conclude this without touching upon Bhagavad Gita, because it is one of the Prasthanatrayas, a very important, it is a gift that is offered to the entire world by Bharat. It is the best management text ever coined by anybody at all, because it was sung by the Lord Bhagavan Krishna, Bhagavata Gita, iti Bhagavad Gita. That is why when I started Vasudeva Sutam, I wanted to take it up in a small musical note, because Sakshat Bhagavan did it, because it is easy to remember and it is attractive to listen. It is easy to memorize it that way. See, this all starts, I have only focused upon chapter 12, which is Bhakti Yoga, because my concept is all about Bhakti. Kinkarosmi, Kinkarosmi. So in Bhakti Yoga, the first question arises from Arjuna. See, people who worship your physical form, your meditative form, and people who worship the Nirguna Brahman, your Saguna Brahman, Nirguna Brahman, whom do you consider superior or better? In answer, Bhagavan replies that the one who contemplates upon me, who meditates upon me as the object, sole object of meditation, I consider him higher or very dear to me, special to me. He does not condemn Nirguna Upasana, by the way. It is up to us to understand it in the right way. Where many things are, it is being understood differently. See, but then Bhagavan is called Bhaktavatsalaha. Of the many names, we also have one name called Bhaktavatsala. What is Vatsala? Again, it is a Tadhita Prayoga. Vatsalyo nama bhavaha yasmin vartate saha Vatsalaha. The quality of compassion or raga towards his devotees, it resides in the Lord. That is why he is called Bhakta Vatsala. So because Lord is so compassionate, he does not want us to strain like Saguna Upasana. So he says, Nirguna Upasana. So he gives us ways of doing, okay, do Saguna Brahma Upasana. If you are not able to do that, okay, then practice through meditation. If you are not able to do it, okay, let you accomplish it by Abhyasa Yogena. This is what Patanjali Maharshi also says in his Yoga Sutras as one way of walking in the path of attaining Samadhi. Okay, if you are not able to do it, you just surrender, or as an arpanam, samarpanam, you offer all your deeds to me. Sarvam Krishnarpanam. Even when you eat, when you sleep, whatever you do, it is, you sacrifice the ownership or the doership, the karta bhava of the action. And then finally, you do the karma phala tyagam also. Renounce all the fruits of the actions, and then you are free from any bondages of the karma. Simple and easy, very tough when practiced, but easiest among all the other ways. Devotion is the best emotion and the easiest way, which Vaishnavism admits and advocates throughout the life of a Vaishnavite. This is the way to live. That's all. Thank you.
Question? Yeah. One question.
What are the ways of the grandmother that given?
You may come here, ma'am. Please come.
Can you tell how Hinduism was revived after the complete taken over by Buddhism and Jainism?
Even today morning, we know that Adi Shankara has condemned Pancharatra and other traditions.
Adi Shankara
Has condemned Pancharatra.
No, I am only asking, I am not talking about the condemnation part. who revived Hinduism after it was swept by Buddhism and Jainism.
No, Pancharatra and other traditions even exist today, survives today.
That is all right. Okay. So what is the Shanmarga or the Shanmata advocated by Sri Adi Shankaracharya Bhagavad Pada when he wanted to revive or revamp Hinduism?
Very quick follow-up, not an argument, very quick follow-up. Do we have any references to Shanmara Sthavana and Prasthanatraya works of Adi Shankara?
Prasthanatraya, it is Upanishad.
Does that come Varahamahadesikan or Kaumara, Shakta come anywhere in the Prasthanatraya commentaries?
No.
That is it. Thank you.
No, 1 second. It does not come in the commentaries.
No, I want to comment on this.
There are no references. Please, sir.
Yeah. I think this is getting into a very hostile kind of argument, really. I think this is again beyond the scope of this talk also, right? Maybe we can have another discussion. What is Shanmata? Is Shanmata a valid concept and all that? Okay?
Still, I don't find any hostility.
No. It depends on the tone and the receiver.
No, not the tone. The Shanmata concept is something brought by the colonizers. Because
brought by, I'm sorry?
Brought by the colonizers.
Colonizer.
I get it.
Right?
But what do you mean by colonizing?
Then in Prasthanatraya commentary or anywhere it is not found. I just wanted to point it out. I think that was the case with my friend also.
No, I will answer. Sri Tyagaraja has mentioned Shanmata. Shivadi Shanmata Mula. In very near to our Tamilnadu, there is Trichy. So it's not brought by colonizers. Okay? Your statement is wrong. Shanmata is a native traditional concept. You may agree with it or not agree with it, but it's not brought by colonizers. I think that's a very offensive statement. I just quoted Sri Tyagaraja.
Please sit down. Please sit down. Sit down. Why should we actually yell at the top of our voice? There is absolutely no scope for any discussion. Our faculty, wonderful faculty here for this college, she has presented a wonderful paper, and all that she was saying was whether there is Shanmata or Adi Shankara or his father or his grandfather was there or not. All the point that she was making was all the 6 principal deities, they can be seen in Vishnu, they can be merged in Vishnu from a Vaishnava point of view. That's all. Whether there is Adi Shankara or not, no problem. Whether there are Shanmatas or not, there is no problem. The only simple point that she was making was that even if you are devoted to one of these 6 deities, that can be converted into Vaishnavism from a Vaishnavite point of view. Some beautiful point that our wonderful, eloquent, articulate faculty member was making. Wonderful, thank you very much. This college is so lucky that they have such wonderful, articulate faculty, and I was asking the same, and we are lucky to have come to. Their students are so lucky, and also I was asking her about the admissions in the college. She was lamenting that because of attraction for computer science courses, gradually admissions in Sanskrit department are coming down. That is such an unfortunate situation, because having such a treasure here of this faculty, if these admissions are coming down, it is so unfortunate.
Policy where we have a confluence of all the streams, so they can become a collaboration between computer science and Sanskrit.
But the new educational policy will be in your state, not in our state. Unfortunately, what can we do? What can we do? Draconian policy.
No, we will. Let us discuss about it. INDICA Academy will help you. Okay, INDICA Academy. In behalf of INDICA Academy, I am promising here, we are going to work for Indic knowledge systems, and we are going to incorporate all these wonderful faculty in the Indic knowledge systems program. Government of India is going to take it up in a very big way, so that will be a good opportunity for all this. Okay. So now, the next session 3, is going to be on Vaishnavism, art and performance. We are so lucky that we got 5 papers in the session, but we have come to this time of the evening. So these 5 papers in the session to cover, maybe we'll be reaching our dinner time, but the dinner is not served here. So we'll have to walk all the way after these 5 papers. So let us have these 5 papers as our sweet evening snacks. Okay, thank you. Now, Sri Ramaji, Dr. Sri Ramaji is going to present her paper on the Maya and Leela of Lord Vishnu's dance.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಸಭೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನನ್ನ ವಂದನೆಗಳು. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಸಿರಿ. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಆದಿಗುರುಗಳು ಅವ್ರ ಅಮ್ಮನೇ. ಹಾಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಆದಿಗುರು ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಇದು ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ತುಂಬಾ ಸಂತೋಷವಾಗಿದೆ. ಈ ಸಮ್ಮೇಳನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ನೃತ್ಯ ಮತ್ತು ವಿಷ್ಣು ವೈಷ್ಣವಿಸಂ ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಈ ವಿಷಯ ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಕ್ ಮುಂಚೆ ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಹಾಡು ಹಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ರಂಗ ಆದಿದನು ಅದ್ಭುತದಿಂದಲಿ ಕಾಂಗಲಿ ಫಲಿಯಲಿ ಆದಿದನು ರಂಗ. ಸೊ ಇದರಿಂದ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಇದೇ ನಂದು ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಿ. ರಂಗನ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವನ ಆಡಿದ ಲೀಲೆ, ಅವನ ಆಡಿದ ನರ್ತನದ ಲೀಲೆ. ಇವಾಗ ನಾನು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಹಾಗೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಕ್ ಮುಂಚೆ ನನ್ನ ಮಾತೃಭಾಷಾ ತೆಲುಗು ಕೂಡ. సో ఎందరో మహానుభావులు అందరికీ వందనము. అదే ఇల్లు ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ అందరూ మహానుభావులు అందరికీ వందనము ಹಾಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. So anyhow, the Maya and Leela of Lord Vishnu's dance, and primarily my quest in this is because I am a performer of Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi dance styles. I've learned traditionally in the Guru Shishya Parampara under well-established Natyamars in the Bharatanatyam style, and dance has always been for me a window to understanding the world. And why movement is made or created in a certain way has always been my quest. Not just that we actually in our paramparas, we always assign importance to our gurus. Gurubhyo Namaha, and whatever they teach, we take it. But our gurus are not, do not just encourage us to learn the dance, but they also teach us creativity within this tradition, as they call it, or parampara. So the dance of Vishnu in its various, so I'm going to read a bit, and then if I'm running out of time, I'll just skip some few slides and make it short so that my other colleagues on the panel are not tortured by lack of time. So, and I know you have gone through a long day. Even my mind is messed up with so many presentations, so I hope I stick to my own and not wander off. Anyhow, my name is Siri. And my husband's name is Ramaswamy, and it's shortened, that's why to Siri Rama, but my name is Siri. The dance of Vishnu in his various avatara or incarnations is realized as Maya or Leela, as seen in both textual and oral traditions. The most commonly associated words with the idea of play or theatre, and in that context with dance with respect to Vishnu and his incarnations, are Vishnu Maya and Krishna Leela. In the Brahma Sutras, Maya or Leela is explained to be the result of the joy that emanates from within and is compared to that of a man who is happy and on awakening from sleep dances. Going back to the earliest text associated with dance, which is the Natya Shastra, the ritualistic opening of the performance space is done with Purvaranga. In the Purvaranga, many deities are invoked to consecrate different parts of the stage, and it starts with the worship of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. The Sutradhara goes to the east and goes with 3 steps associated with the 3 deities. The first is the worship of Shiva, Rudra, with the right leg raised, indicating the male aspect of nature. And the second step with partially raised leg, which indicated the meat of Brahma. And the last was for Vishnu with the raised left leg, which indicated the female aspect of divinity. So it's interesting to see that in Natya Shastra itself, Vishnu was associated with the female aspect. These 3 steps are also attributed to the legend of Vishnu conquering the world with 3 steps, that is Trivikrama, as you know. It is also interesting to note that the idea of Vishnu representing the female aspect of divinity is seen reflected not only in the Amrita mentioned in the Natya Shastra, but also staged symbolically in the pre-performance rituals. The Sutradhara, who performs the Purvaranga, is identified as Brahma. So the Sutradhara itself is called Brahma. Is identified. He is not called Brahma particularly. He is identified. His assistant as Vishnu, and the Vidishaka is identified with the Asuras. So some scholars see that the vada or the conversation happening between the assistant, who is supposed to be Vishnu, and the Vidishaka, who is the Asura, it is seen that this conversation is actually a battle of words where the assistant proves his point against the Vidishaka who is making fun of different things. So it's very interesting to see that there itself in play the idea of Vishnu is represented in Natya. If Natya Shastra was influenced by Shaivism, later the commentators on the Natya Shastra, according to Dr. Raghavan, were influenced by Krishna and Vishnu. Describing a dance in springtime performed by Nartakis, at the end of the dance a shloka or hymn is sung, saying that the dance originated from the movements of the Devas when they danced with joy on getting Amrita from Vishnu during the churning of the ocean. This is clearly seen in Nartamaya, a 16th century text which is dedicated to Nartaka and his or her ensemble of musicians. This treatise is written by Pandarika Vittala, who was a Smartha Vaishnava Brahmin who was a devotee of Vittala of Pandarpura. Nartamaya departs from the usual practice of crediting Shiva with dance. Vishnu is said to create dance by the mere movement of his eyebrows, which makes the danceress Maya dance.
Lakshmipati or Vishnu is said to make Maya dance in the form of his incarnations, Vamana and Narasimha. Everybody bows down to Maya and her Lord Vishnu, who make or enact this play of the world, and Krishna is also invoked for his blessings. He is described as being immersed in the sport of Rasa dance. So this is a very interesting text which attributes dance itself instead of Shiva to Vishnu, and how Vishnu creates this dance is also very interesting through his Maya Shakti. So the shloka is here. Shri Lakshmipati Chitta Vaibhava Sakrit Dhrukshepa Sanyaniya Vishwakaravati Mahaganavati Maya Nati Nrityati Tam Ko Nartayatiha Vamana Nisimhadi Swarupairalam Tam Vande Akhila Lokanatakam Maya Cha Mayapati Ishan Yati Layopetam Varna Bhodai Prupashritam Rasa Krida Mayam Natva Vakshi Nartana Ninyam. After saying this, he says that I'm going to talk about what the dancer or his ensemble should do. Apart from this, skipping a few things, Vishnu is pictured as in his Yoga Nidra and in spontaneous imaginations or gestures, he creates the play of this world. So he is often described as an actor, Mahanata, and his role in society is defined by his Leela, sportive activities. Again, Vishnu is also thought of in the Agni Purana as being Narasimha, and he is described in his, ferocious aspect, well described in Annamacharya's composition, Kadirin Singh Stambhamana Vedale, in that, Palalochanamu Bhayadogramukamu, Jwalamai Kesaramu, what all the things, and here in Agni he is in Raudra, but the word that interests me because I'm a dancer is he's also told to be dancing. Dancing just like Shiva in Rudra Tandava. Like, so he also, though we don't associate Narasimha often enough with Tandava, here in many places he is thought of as dancing the Rudra Tandava. Again, Narayana or Vishnu is also thought of in Vaishnava texts as the unchanging Purusha, and he possesses Shakti which is similar to him, and they are, this Shakti's will or vibration creates the dance of the universe. Again, another popular visual of Vishnu dancing is Mohini, which you all know, Mohini. And from that idea of Mohini, the classical dance style of Mohiniyattam has emerged. So then there are other kshetras or associated with Vishnu. So we have this also in the Brahminiya Chitra Karma Shastra, and it is referred to as the Navinita Nritta or butter dance. So there is a specific shloka, Agama shloka, describing how this image should be sculpted. Usually you have Kaliya Mardana, but this Navinita Nritta Krishna also is very interesting in terms of dance. And in a very similar posture. I talked about Mohiniyattam also. And of course, Kaliya Mardana dance. I'm going to skip a few pages in my paper, but come to different, in my paper I talk also about the mention of Krishna and Vishnu and the dances in different texts like Shilapadigaram, etc., where there are references to Krishna dancing. But coming to my own interest and for example, in dance, the Samapada Sthana is often used, it's used to show tranquility, like in yoga when you stand. And this tranquility is, and the meaning of that movement of not moving or having the potential of great movement. It's both. It's not that you are passive. It is that you have the potential to move, and that is Vishnu's stance. He is always shown in this samapada, or the tranquil posture, but the ability to have the potential of kinetic movement at any point of time. So it's interesting to see, for me as a dancer and one who studies movement, of how these postures have been adapted into dance, performative traditions and in sculptural traditions, and how they mean more than just sculpting a figure and just showing somebody in a posture. That posture itself has meaning, just like in yoga and other texts. So even if you see, this is we were showing, this is the Bharatanatyam presentation, and we are showing Vithala. So he is also shown in that Samapada position. But interestingly, there is another position in dance called the Vaishnava-Shakta. And in that, the leg is in the Samapada position and the other leg is in the Trichy position, like this. And that is also called the Vaishnava-Shakta. Now we don't, I mean, when teachers, Natanas used to teach us, they would say, assume the Vaishnava-Shakta. They didn't know where it came from, that this is a Vaishnava-Shakta, but we were told that whatever, if you hold Rama posture, you assume the Vaishnava-Shakta. So that is how, whether it was my Kuchipudi Acharya, who was well versed in the Natya Shastra and other things, he would tell, Vaishnava-Shakta you take, and that would be the correct position for. So the association of a particular sthana with, it's a particular movement. Even standing still is a movement. It's not just. So for me, that is very interesting and requires greater in-depth research on why this particular movement was chosen for this deity and what potential it shows or what philosophical aspect it shows of the deity. So that's what's interesting to me. Like, why not some other posture? Similarly, for Krishna, always swastika is adopted in the Venugopala stance. So always the foot is crossed like this and should. So, yes. Vishwavandita Mukunda. So even in Narayana Tirtha mentions that in his Vatyasta Padaravinda Vishwavandita Mukunda. So it's in the one of the early Taranginis, which is taught to students of, it's called Balagopala Tarangam, and towards the end, before the dancer takes the plate, the famous Kuchipudi is like iconic for the plate, standing on the plate and dancing, you start, and even, I'm glad you pointed out, sir, that Vatyasta Padara Vinda, when we start, my guru, we just learned from our gurus, we didn't ask many questions, and now I think about it, we start with actually the swastika pada. Though we are not showing Krishna, we start with so like I said, the posture is a potential for the movement. So, so we don't say Vatyasta Padana, just stand there. It is not a lecture. It is the poetry of art is woven into the philosophical background with which, so that Vatyasta Pada is meant for that. So for me, that is my quest. So it's still an ongoing quest, and so this is the Vatyasta Pada. We associate Krishna with this, but we never, at least for a long time, I never asked. I don't know if you all asked, why swastika and how it came into popular consciousness. So whenever you show Krishna, you show with this. Of course, the Agama texts also prescribe this, but beside that, it's also interesting that Natyacharyas also continue with this. So there are many Vaishnava performing traditions, Bhagavata Mela, Krishnattam, Ram Leela, and I've talked a lot about all this in my paper. So Dashavatari
in the coastal Maharashtra, and Satriya, of course, Kuchipudi, and this is that famous iconic keeping the tambalam and the pot on the head, and then Manipuri. All these are, so having looked through all this, and of course the Dashavatara by Gita Govinda of Jayadeva, which is performed. And we also have Dashavatara shlokas in Abhinay Darpana, where it says, Matsya Hastam Darshayatva. This is quite common in dance classes, so I'm not going to belabor my point. But having looked through all this, I'll quickly come to what I would say for me is the most interesting part of the paper, there are narrative performative traditions, and I have put these in the most the typologies that I could think of in this. I'm sure there may be more, but this is what I have experienced as a performer. So one is the Nayika Kirtana. So there are compositions which show the Nayika Bhava to Sakhiye in the Jalam, Yenadi, and then Swamiye Varasolladi, famous Dandayadapani Pillai composition, where she asks, please bring Narayana or Vishnu to me, and she is a Vrihut Kantita Nayika. So compositions like that, and after that, we have Nama Sankirtanas. Nowadays, though Tyagaraja didn't write for dance, he's been used extensively by dancers all over to the sing. So Dasa Sampradaya also has, contributed to the dance language. And then we have Patra Kirtana. So whether it's Andal and Tirupavai or Meera Bhajans, the dancer assumes the role of the Patra. Whichever she becomes Andal, or she becomes, even in performances, the dancer will dress up as Meera or dress up as Andal and perform these Patra Kirtanas. And also, this would include the, Bhagavata traditions, and then of course the Arya Seve, this is Seva Kirtani, Arya Seva. Then of course we have Samuha Kirtana. So like the Varkari Sampradaya, or even I would say even the Rasa, Dandiya Ras of Gujarat, that is also, it is around based on this Rasa of Krishna and Radha. So that is also a Kirtan, a Samuha Kirtan. And interestingly, when I see, you can see the Ringan of the Varkari Sampradaya, which was talked about. And going on, I would say I would conclude soon, and this thing in the paper is that one should study the kinesthetics of why Vaishnava traditions of dance have a certain kind of movement. This little bit of this has been done by Dr. Srimati Kanakrele, who is no more now, but she was a legendary Mohiniyattam exponent, Padma Bhushan, and she actually, in her analysis of Mohiniyattam that she practiced, she talks about the Andalika movement, meaning the movement, circular movement, or so she talks about the infinity, the circle of the arena, and it starts from the center, and the Mohiniyattam, of course, that's the stretch mandala position, and going into this back of the here. So the dancer traces the infinity, and even all the movements are circular. Similarly, I find that when I dance, because I dance both Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi, I find when I dance Kuchipudi, again my inner soul, when it's connected with what my Acharya taught, it is circular. Everything in Kuchipudi emerges and goes into a circle.
Similarly, I see that whether it's Vankari Sampradaya or the Dandiya Ras, it's again circular. And again, I mean, everybody knows circle has no hierarchy. Circles tend to make everybody the same and puts you on the same plane. There's no upper and lower. So I wonder whether these movements, and I think intentionally these movements came from the philosophical inputs of Vaishnava thought and literature. Because all these people who created these movements were Bhagavatas. They were knowledgeable in Natyashastra and in their own philosophical traditions of Vaishnava cult. So from center to circumference and back, and Andalika to circular movements. So that is my entire paper, and if you all have the time and interest, please do read it. And with that, I conclude my talk. Thank you very much.
Questions?
So my gurus are Srimati Komalavalli Muni, who was a direct disciple of Meenakshi Guru Meenakshi Sundaram Pillai. And I also learned under Guru T.V. Soundarajan, who was a disciple of Muthukumarappa Pillai, and Kalamamini T.S. Kadirvelu. He also taught me on the rhythm aspects of dance. My Kuchipudi Acharya is C.R. Acharya, Ramchandra Acharya. That is it. Thank you.
We are lucky to have you, Sri Ramaji. Every time we have a wonderful dancer and also a researcher in you. Now, because there are no more questions, we'll move on to the next paper. Dr. Durjati Sharmaji, Visual Aesthetics of Vaishnava Literary Culture of Assam, an analysis of the Chitra Bhagavata in Assamese. Not showing there. Yeah, this is once I start. Okay.
নমস্কাৰ ইণ্ডিকা আৰু শ্ৰীমদ আন্দামান কলা বাণিজ্য বিদ্যালয়ৰ যুগ্ম সৌজন্যত অনুষ্ঠিত বৈষ্ণৱবাদৰ ওপৰত বৈষ্ণৱবাদ বিষয়ে আলোচনা চক্ৰত মই অসমৰ বৈষ্ণৱ সাহিত্য সংস্কৃতিৰ অন্তৰ্গত চিত্ৰ ভাগৱতৰ পাণ্ডুলিপিৰ বিষয়ে আৰু এই পাণ্ডুলিপিখনত প্ৰযোজ্য যেটো চাক্ষুষ নন্দন তত্ত্ব ভিজুৱেল এস্থেটিক্সৰ বিষয়ে কিছু কথা ক'বলৈ ওলাইছো. It's my pleasure and privilege to be presenting my paper at this conference. This is my second INDICA conference, and my subject for deliberation is the visual aesthetics of the Vaishnava literary culture of Assam, and analysis of the Chitra Bhagavata in Assamese. So I shall keep to the time of 15 minutes, and yeah, all right. So my study basically revolves around, for this particular paper, revolves around this particular manuscript called Chitra Bhagavata within the Vaishnavite literary culture of Assam. And since Dr. Vijay Borabaido had already touched upon Shankardeva and his Neo-Vaishnavite movement, so I shall skip the first slide basically, because it talks about the basic objectives of the Neo-Vaishnavite movement. So it's already well known. So what I would begin with is that within this particular movement, there was within this movement, Neo-Vaishnavite movement, there was a marked inclination towards the visual performative medium of dissemination, right from the onset of the Neo-Vaishnavite movement towards the closing decades of the 15th century. So information regarding Shankardev and Madhavdev are provided in the slides. So I want to focus on this importance that they accorded to the visual performative medium as a mode of disseminating their missionary enterprise. And from that, I would like to talk about the development of a new visual poetics embedded within the plural epistemological frameworks. I'll also be touching upon how the poetics here is also concerned with the pluralistic epistemology emanating from the different representational formats, be it the scriptural, oral, performative, visual, how they converged to give a cohesive, a very holistic, experiential dimension to this whole aspect of visual aesthetics. So based on this understanding, this particular paper takes for its study an illustrated Assamese manuscript called the Chitra Bhagavata. The name is slightly problematic, I'll come to that. This was composed sometime in the Shaka year 1461, that is AD 1539, most likely in the Bali Khotra. It's one of the Vaishnavite monastery located in Nagaon, Assam. So in the course of my presentation, I shall also be touching briefly upon the oral and performative elements which are signifying, which are related to the experiential and embodied forms of knowledge. This was something specifically highlighted upon by Nagaraj ji in the CFP to this particular conference. So I would be focusing on this experiential, as I talked about this cohesive organic experientiality that I was talking about, through these embodied forms of knowledge within the pre-colonial Vaishnava literary culture of Assam, as well as the institutional structure of this sectarian order and its interface with the Ahom royal culture, all of which are interconnected through a network of vigorous cultural exchange and negotiation. So I would also be dealing with, I don't have time, but in the course of my discussion, I'd also be talking about the idea of space, because within pre-colonial Assam of that period, there were different spaces from which, works on composition of different manuscripts were happening. One was the space of the monastery, the Khotra, right? And the other was also the royal court. So the production of manuscripts within those two different spaces were highly contingent upon the dominant ideology which were prevalent within those spaces, the religious or the secular. So based on this would be my the base of my analysis. So the theoretical dimension of my paper is to do with the idea of visual aesthetics, and as I argue that this idea of this study on visual aesthetics, it opens up many possibilities for a kind of a collaborative understanding between different genres of literature and visual arts through one or more kind of medialities. So in the course of my paper, I shall be talking about three kinds of medialities, but I would possibly refer to only one. These are multimediality, transmediality, and intermediality. Now, what are these concepts? Now, they're defined as, this is quoted from Kettenbelt, this was Professor T.S. Sittanath, he was my MPhil supervisor. So from his work I have quoted, in the definition is multimediality refers to the occurrence when there are multiple media in one and the same object. Transmediality refers to the transfer from one medium to another medium, media change, and intermediality refers to the correlation of media in the sense of mutual influences between media. So for obviously there are minor differences amongst these three concepts, but there are also significant overlaps. So for the purpose of this presentation, I shall rather use multimediality as a convenient term, obviously with due recognition of the fact that there are subtle differences between these three kinds of medialities. Now, as far as the study of the illustrated manuscripts are concerned, from an essentially multimedial perspective, so I would like to argue that the integration of diverse expressive registers, by expressive registers I am meaning the scripto, the phono, and also the performative, they give rise to a kind of a polyvalent situation where images, sounds, and gestures originating from various sources, they interact with one another. Now, the Chitra Bhagavata, now I'll try to see how we can apply this theory to this analysis of the Chitra Bhagavat. Now, with the Chitra Bhagavata, I would also like to mention two contemporary, near contemporary manuscripts, along with Geet Govinda, this is the Assamese Gita Govinda, and Hasti Vidyarnava, the illustrated treatise on elephant lore, are notable among the illustrated Assamese manuscripts, epitomizing the joint engagement between the literature and visual arts in medieval and early modern Europe. Here I have early modern Assam. Now the royal courts of the Ahoms, the Kos and the Kosari, Vijay Vaidu had already talked about these kingdoms in the map that she had shown, and the Hotros were the two prime sites. I already mentioned that, from which emerged the artistic and literary compositions in Assamese during that period. Now, whereas Chitra Bhagavata was produced within the Vaishnavite monastery, and this is important for us to understand, the Chitra Bhagavata was produced within the monastery, within the monastic order, and both Git Govinda and Hasti Vidyarnava were composed through royal patronage in the early years of the 18th century. So the spaces from which these artistic works emerged, this is something very important as far as the visual aesthetics are concerned. Now the Chitra Bhagavata and Gita Govinda, they represented two marked yet related styles of painting that emerged in Assam between the 17th and the 19th centuries, namely the Hotriya, that is related to the monastic order, Chitra Bhagavata, and the Gorgaon or the Raja Ghoria. Gorgaon because Gorgaon was the capital of the Ahom dynasty, so it's called Gorgoya or the Raja Ghoria or the royal styles of painting from within which Gita Govinda and Hasti Vidyarnava had emerged. Now this I already mentioned about the Hotriya style. Now as far as the dating of this particular manuscript of Chitra Bhagavata is concerned, I mean there is slight doubt because it's deduced from the manuscript that this was composed sometime around 1539, but Noren Kolita in his book Ahomor Citrokola, in that particular book he opines that this couldn't have been composed before 1660. So there are reasons for his saying so, because this is the time of Mir Jumla's invasion of Assam, and looking at the peculiar characteristics of this particular manuscript, he supposedly makes the right assumption. Now the immediate source for the illustrations of the Chitra Bhagavata was Shankardeva's translation of the selected portions from Dahamoskanda, the 10th book of the Sanskrit Bhagavata Purana. The important thing is that, let me clarify, that Chitra Bhagavata is not a separate work of art. In the pre-colonial period, the text and the image, they coexisted. So it was only within the print culture that what had happened, the text was taken away and printed separately, and the images were again printed separately. Now this juncture, this divorce, or rather this kind of a taking away the image from the text, I would see this as epistemic violence, because what it essentially did, it actually it stopped a dialogue, this multimedial dialogue that I am talking about. This is this problem that was brought about through print. Right, because the text, so what happened when I am reading, if I am just reading the text, I have to imagine, I have to use my own imagination. But for the pre-colonial, or be the audience or the reader, whatever we may call, they had the image and the text simultaneously with them. But with colonialism, or with print capitalism, whatever happened, there was a divorce because the texts were separated. The print text was published separately, and the illustrations they came out later. So this is something I want to highlight. Now, with reference to this Chitra Bhagavata manuscript, which was recovered from the Balihotra, Maheshwar Nayak, he says, and I quote, he says that the technique and finish of the work exhibit Rajput Mughal influences, although here and there local conventions are naturally to be expected, inasmuch as practices in Assam amounted to an independent school. Now, obviously, Maheshwar Nayak here is talking about a possible Assam school of painting. But at the same time, he is also careful not to posit the Assam style as an extension of the Mughal school. No, I mean but it has its own features, which he tried to highlight in the course of his analysis. But Chitra Bhagavata basically was conceived within the monastic space, and this is something which directly concerns us for our this present conference on Vaishnavism. Now, at this time, let us take an image as an example. Now, this particular image, if we take, this is the image which is the birth of Krishna in prison. I mean, this is immediately just after the birth of Krishna. There is Vasudeva and Devaki on either sides. Now, this is the scene where Krishna appears in his magnificent form before Vasudeva and Devaki in the prison cell and informs them about his impending birth as their son. He hasn't yet born. He tells them about it. He is about to be born as their child. Now, what I would do, I would just read the corresponding lines in the Bhagavata Puran, because I want to just bring back the pre-colonial experience of image and text at one place. Now, in Bhagavata Puran, this is how it is described in the vernacular, in Shankardeva's translation. In Assamese, it is described as, I'll first read the Assamese and I'll move to the translation. Komolo lusono sari puje sari ostro, konthot kostopho hubhe gawe pitobostro. I've translated it as, the lotus side appeared with his forearms adorned with the four insignias. The Kostava gem is shining on the necklace around his neck, and so is the yellow garment on his body. Now, this is the visual description, and also complemented by a the verbal description of this particular image. So what happens? There is a very cohesive experience. The visual and the verbal, they integrate. And this is what I would rather explain, or rather posit, as a multimedial experience. Then, following this argument, it may be deduced. Now, I'll just stay with this image. So, following this argument, Maheshwar Nayak had said that the figures in the Chitra Bhagavata are mostly in profile. Here we see a front-on image and also two profile images. He says that the figures in the Chitra Bhagavata are mostly in profile. Sometimes the face part is profiled and silhouetted against the deep background, while the body stands frontally. Now, following this argument, it may be deduced that while the front-on vision of the characters enables the artist to capture the body in motion, whether in conversation, in combat, or in dance or performances, the face in profile helps in navigating the gaze of the onlooker across the length and breadth of the visual panel inscribed within this folio. I mean, the profile actually directs the vision of the audience because it gives a perspective within the image. It must also be remembered that upon the horizontal oblong folios, the artist draws a sequence of succeeding events from left to right, thereby presenting a linear visual text for the onlookers. In Hitangi's presentation, you could actually see that the text actually moves from left to right. So there's a narrative, there's a sequentiality, almost like a text-like sequence in the visual image. So this is where the text and the image, they interact. I'll quickly take another image. Right. Now this is an image which depicts a Gandharva dance in the Kshatriya style. Siriji had shown the image of a Kshatriya dance, but this is how it is shown in the manuscript. Now against this monochrome, sir, I will conclude in about 4-5 minutes. Against the monochrome red background in the image above, in this image, the figures are drawn upon the Alekhya sthana in shades of various colors, which capture them in a state of performance. These are not static figures, these are moving figures. Using musical instruments, namely the khol and the cymbals, thereby expressing a shared semiotic field of dance, music and color as well. Now the singularity of the human figures is emphasized by the arch patterns which seem to enclose them as if to fix our gaze upon the individual identities. They are sort of enclosed by those arch which actually helps us focus upon their individual identities. The limited facial expressions of the figures are counterbalanced by the highly meaningful use of mudras and bhangimas. The faces, the expressions are not very evocative, but their body movements. So this is another, I talked about different pluralistic epistemologies. One is the scriptocentric, one is the body phonocentric, this is the body-centric knowledge. The performance-based knowledge that we can, and Siriji had actually shown that, how it itself has its own epistemology. Now, as again I would like to invoke Neog here, he says that there is a rhythm in the scenes of musical and dance performances of Gandharvas, Vidyadharas and Apsaras. Attempts at symmetry are evident, movements of groups are dynamically depicted. These illustrations provide illuminating insights in the practice of representing the Leela or the divine sport of Krishna, more specifically the childhood acts, as in the case of Chitra Bhagavata, through performance. And here exactly what happens, as Satyanath says, the text moves into an open space and anyone could be its audience, further diversifying the public sphere. We had talked about the Bhakti public sphere. The text moves into the public sphere. The expansion of the public sphere is also characterized by the representation of the text of the body-centric, the performance-based dimensions of the Vaishnava culture, as evident from the pictorial representation of this Gandharva dance. I had one more image to show. I'll show that and I'll quickly conclude, sir. Now this is the third image. Now, right. Now these figures in these images above are cloud gods who are instructed by Indra to let loose a torrential deluge upon the inhabitants of Vrindavan. However, if you look carefully, one's attention is immediately drawn towards the turban worn by them and also the facial features. Right. So this could actually signify a Mughal influence on the Chitra Bhagavata painting of that particular time. Right, and this, and that's why Narayan Kolita assumes that this Chitra Bhagavata manuscript could have been produced something around 1660, because the early half of the 17th century was the time when there were frequent wars between the Ahoms and the Mughals. But this also led to a kind of a cultural, enhancing of the cultural connection between the two cultures. So this could have its own influence on this, on the conceptualization of these facial patterns. Well, I guess I can come to the conclusion. So a study on these various aspects of multimediality conceptualized and practiced within the Vaishnava literary culture of early Assam, early modern Assam, brings forth revealing insights on the symbiotic interplay between the oral, textual, performative, and visual dimensions, all integrated to present a cohesive aesthetic religious experience to the bhaktas and the rasikas alike. The present study has endeavored to locate and map a transitional process whereby the artistic and literary experience traditionally embedded within the Vaishnava culture gradually moved out of the monastic confines and commingled with a more secular vision of creating art and literature under a royal authority. The Chitra Bhagavata stands on the threshold of this transition, to be followed by Gita Govinda, where one can locate a happy blending of the monastic and the royal styles. A multimedia approach towards the study of Chitra Bhagavata thus opens exciting possibilities in the study of comparative arts. I'm a student of comparative literature, so I'm tempted to again talk about comparative arts with a more sustained focus on the twin aspects of influence and reception. I showed that in this particular image, as regulating the interaction between the visual and the verbal domains of expression. Furthermore, one also needs to pay attention to the aspect of social epistemology, the material culture behind the production of manuscripts like this, and its close interface with the areas of traditional knowledge system. This is something could be collated with these kind of studies, involving multidisciplinary discourses relevant to the culture and society in question. Thank you so much. And these are my references. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. There are a lot. Number of manuscripts have been found, and there was a concerted attempt in the early years of the 20th century to actually, bring these manuscripts and, prepare catalogs. We have a large number of manuscripts which have been subsequently discovered, but these three manuscripts I'm talking about, but they represent a transitional phase. The Chitra Bhagavad, the Bhakti Vigraha, there is also Ananda Lahari. There are also further manuscripts, so we would actually help us go deeper into this question of influence and reception. So I can give you the list later on. I have the list with me. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Do you find any upfront in
Yes, there are the Rajput styles. There are.
Where finding direct background, profile the figures of pages profile, plus there are arts surrounding them.
Yes, I stick to that quote. There's a quote by Benjamin Gray. So he says that, and I'm just quickly quoting that, and I'll just end it. He says that he refers to this manuscript, and he says that the heirs of the medieval Pala tradition were in Nepal and Assam, as is indicated anew by the recently published series of miniatures to an Assam manuscript of Bhagavata Purana dated 1539 AD. He said this in 1953. These show the figures in silhouette, the faces always in profile against a strong red ground and beneath carved arches. They clearly look back to the Buddhist emesis of the Pala period, which are organized in the same way with figures in architectural niches. This is a quote from Basil Gray. It was published in 1953, immediately after this manuscript was printed in 1953. So, yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that lively and lovely presentation. All these questions about Jain miniatures and Rajasthani miniatures show that we already know them. And that is what makes this paper more relevant, because these are not known. These are not so much known. So what is not so much known is being brought into light, and we always remember what we already know, and we try to understand what is newly being known in terms of what we already know. All the students in the exams, the civil services exams and other places also, they already get these questions: Jain paintings, Jain miniatures, illustrative Jain paintings or miniatures, all that. But now, after this paper, there will be questions on Chitra Bhagavata also. People will start getting that. And now another waking up paper. If you are all sleeping, I assure you, you will all wake up with Dr. Janardhan Ghosh's paper, Vaishnava Natya Leela, Sri Chaitanya's Tryst with performance, inducing spirituality. Some people were suggesting that we postpone the papers of this evening to tomorrow, but tomorrow evening you will all have to catch your flights. You will not be able to catch if we postpone today. So today is the time, you have time, you can spend some more time here and then go to the hotel and have your dinner. So we'll have 3 more papers along with this. There are 3 papers. So I think we'll be done with this. Dr. Janardhan Ghosh is definitely more powerful than tea. Please.
ओम स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्म स्वरूपने अवतार वरिष्ठाय राम कृष्णाय ते नमः। উপস্থিত সকলকে সাদর অভিনন্দন এবং ভালোবাসা, প্রীতি ও শুভেচ্ছা। আজকের এই ইন্ডিকার যে বিদগ্ধ পণ্ডিত সমাবেশ, সেই সমাবেশে অংশগ্রহণ করতে পেরে আমি ধন্য। বিশেষ করে এই বৈষ্ণব সাহিত্য, বৈষ্ণব তত্ত্ব এবং বৈষ্ণব সংস্কৃতির যে আলোচনার এক পরিমণ্ডল এখানে সৃষ্টি হয়েছে, তাতে স্নান করে আমি নিজে পবিত্র হওয়ার একটা চেষ্টা চালাচ্ছি। বিশেষ করে আমি ধন্যবাদ জানাই ডক্টর পাতুরিজিকে এবং শ্রীনিবাসজিকে, যার সহযোগিতা ভিন্ন এই কাজটি সম্ভব হতো না। Well, Sir had already kind of raised the bar for me, which is really difficult to confront. And I feel at the fag end of the any kind of conference, when you have prevailed through so much of intellectual rigor, it gives you an impetus or a kind of a good feeling that it's going to end soon. So that is the good feeling that I think I might be able to provide you with, that the end is closer. Well, I'm going to talk about Vaishnava-Natya Leela, Sri Chaitanya's Tryst with performance inducing spirituality. Now, this is a very narrowed topic in the kind of vastness that you have already dwelt in. I am going to look through a very narrow lens, the performativity of Chaitanya, who is a founder of a religious movement of a particular region, and that is Bengal, which later on spread across the world. So my entire looking would be very focused, very narrow, and also I would be, my theoretical premise that I have here is performance studies, rasa theory, and a little bit of historical tracing of how Chaitanya is posited by the established Bengali theatre historians. How do we place Chaitanya, and what is missing, what is incomplete in evaluating Chaitanya as a performer, and why performance became an integral part of Gaudiya Vaishnava movement. That is also very interesting, because if you usually see the popular image of Chaitanya, he is in a performative mode with his raised hand. Most of these images are like that. So performance might have been a very integral part of his religious practice. So we are going to look into these areas. The first part, I would just give you a kind of a tracing of how I'm going to follow this particular paper, mapping of this particular paper. First, I'm going to talk about a little bit of the historical facts, what is the history that has been talked about by the Bengali historians about Bengali theatre, where is Chaitanya posited, and then we look into how Chaitanya's theatre could have been a potential theatrical practice which does not have a proper legacy now also, which was never followed and never explored that way. And later on, in the third aspect, I would also look into how it was mutually beneficial for the Vaishnava religious practice, the philosophical idea. Was it kind of replenished the ideas of what philosophy Chaitanya had? So these are the three aspects, three categories that we will fast travel through. So if we look into the origin of Bengali theatre, now it is said that there are very minute mentions in Chorjapad of Buddhist Chorjapad. In Natya Shastra it has been mentioned, in Abhinaya Darpana also slight mentions are there. Then in Nataka Lakshana by Sagar Nandi and Lochan Pandit's Raga Tarangini, we have slight mentions of Bengal theatre, the theatre that emerged in Bengal. In Natya Shastra, what we find basically about the way, there are different origin theories of about Nataka in Natya Shastra. So one of them definitely is the popular one, which is the Vedic origin. I'm not going into that, where Brahma is telling Bharata to kind of compile the different formulations of Nataka. But I would also talk about the folk origin that is there, which is predominantly more closer to what the other historians feel might be the origin of Bengali theatre. One aspect which is mentioned in Natya Shastra is pravritti. Now, what is pravritti? He identified 4 different quarters according to the psychophysical tendencies and the ways of life of people inhabiting those quarters. These phenomena is termed as pravritti. So there were 4 pravrittis: Dakshinatya, Avanti, Panchala Madhyama, and Odra Magadhi. And this Odra Magadhi is the eastern regional. But later on, we find that in the explanations and the treatise written by Abhinavagupta and by Dhananjaya, there is a contention whether these pravrittis were independently practiced in a particular region or there was some fluidity, like there was a mixture. So if there was a fluidity, then identifying a particular kind of a practice from a region is very difficult. So that difficulty was there with Natya Shastra. But what is the most popular and I find most attractive origin of theatre in Bengal is the folk origin. And in this folk origin, we find Professor Monomotho Mohan Basu, who is not referred by usual, theatre historians. He feels that Bengali theatre emerged out of different folk ritual practices. And one of this ritual practice was worshipping Surya, because Surya was the source of energy, Surya was the source of food, and so many. And Surya was a very tangible kind of superpower that was there in front of the people then who would try to worship. So Surya worship was a very dominant practice in the ancient time, but Surya was replaced by Shiva. And that is how this folk practice entered into the classical theatrical practice also. I've got a very interesting text which talks about how Surya and Shiva, they almost like changed their positions, and how Surya gave place to Shiva. This is a small text. It's in Bangla also, I've translated in English. This is a conversation between Suryai and Gauri. Now, Gauri, as we know, is Shiva's wife, according to the Bengali pantheon, and definitely popular Shaivite traditional folk tales also we know Gauri is Shiva's wife. But here we find Suryai having his wife as Gauri. So Gauri is asking, Tomar deshe jamure Suryai, ami kapore dukkho pamu. I shall go to your country, Suryai, but I shall suffer for clothes. But then Suryai says, Nogore, Nogore, ami tatiya boshamu. In the cities, I shall have weavers settled. Don't worry. Please come. When she's at her mother's place and she's reluctant to go back to Suryai's place, so she is. Then she has another condition. Tomar dese jamure Suryai, ami shankher dukkho pab. So I will have problems because I don't think I'll suffer because of lack of conch shells. So he says, no, don't worry. In the cities, I shall have conch shell traders settled. Nogore, Nogore, ami shankari bosham. Then Gauri comes to a she feels that this is the reason that Surya won't be able to kind of give a proper answer to that. He said, Tomar deshe jamure Suryai, ami ma bolibo kare. So I'll go to your country, but whom do I call mother? Then Surya says, Amar je ma ache, ma boliba tare. So I have a mother, you call her the same. So all these this is a very interesting conversation, a palagan. It's a form of a singing pattern which is there, where we find Surya and Shiva being the same. So from Shiva itself, I think this folk form of theatre also emerged, and which later on we have urban theatre. Why Shivotsav is, there are other kind of possible reasons why we can think that Shivotsav was one of the reasons for theatre emerging in Bengal. Is one of the festivals which still ritual festivals which still exist in Bengal is Gambhira, Chorok. You have heard of these Chorok and Gambhira. If you see, this is an image of Chorok Utshav. This is Shiva Utsav and Gajon Utshav. These are popular folk utsavs that happen in Bengal. And what is you see here is a bamboo post, which is similar to Jarjara in our performance. Now, Jarjara is also seen in Western performances, also in Shakespearean plays. In England, there was maypole. A maypole was planted. So all this must have gone from our Eastern. That is what Monomothonath Basu feels, that these traditional performative elements must have traveled to the West, and they have these elements which they have picked up. But we always look that everything comes from the West to the East. And that is what some of the contemporary theatre historians are talking about, that Bengali theatre originates somewhere around 18th century, after there was this Russian director called Gerasim Lebedev, who in 1795 did a play in Bangla. So they consider that to be the first Bengali play and beginning of Bengali theatre. And they also they speak about the Sanskrit influence also in Bengali theatre a little, because in Bangla we call theatre as Natok. So in Dasarupaka we have Nataka. So it must have emerged from Nataka. So that kind of an assumption is also made. But Monomothonath Basu feels that there was this indigenous form of Bengali theatre that grew in Bengal. And that is which has been less explored. So it is more of these influences we talk more about, and contemporary practice also is more on the Western lines than on these indigenous practices. So another thing that we find in classical theatre also, this Samudra Manthan and Tripardaha as the two major texts which were there a part of classical theatre, which is also based on Shiva's tale. So these Shiva references are always there. Then, like Dr. Kait said, that along after this Shiva influence, there was this Krishna cult which influenced Bengali theatre. And we have There is one little mention that I would, oh, I would, so I would go very fast then, because there are so many things that I had thought I would be sharing. But no, because there is a paucity of time, I would rather kind of rush through all this. One thing was the Sanskrit influence on Bengali theatre is also contested because of another reason, and that is because of Satapatha Brahmana, where it is said that the river Sadanira or this Karatoa, which is there in Bengal, that was the reason till which the Vedic influences were there. Beyond the Karatoa river, the influences did not spread. So they had their original indigenous forms, which was practiced by Chaitanya. I'll straightway go into Chaitanya's practice. Now, there are three books that I am going to I have quoted in the text. They are Chaitanya Bhagavat, written by Vrindavan Das. Then we have Chaitanya Charitamrita, that is by Kobiraj Goswami. And we have Chaitanya Mangal by Jagannatha and Lochana. Now, Chaitanya Mangala was also the name of Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Mangala had a lot of entertaining elements and less of spiritual references. So the Goswamis of Vrindavan, they felt that the Chaitanya Mangala of Vrindavan Das should be changed, a different name should be given to it, and they named it as Chaitanya Bhagavat. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, there is this chapter, 18th chapter, which is in the second volume. There are three volumes, Adi Khanda, Madhyama Khanda, and the final Khanda. In the second volume, 18th chapter has an elaborate discussion of how Chaitanya is performing plays. What kind of things that he is. There is one scholar called Dr. S.K. Dey who feels that Vaishnavas were not able to influence Bengali theatre because they were predominantly into a very, very melodramatic, emotional experience which did not kind of enrich the Jatra or the Bengali theatre, which was more subtle and more sophisticated, they felt. But this has been argued that Chaitanya's theatre is far more sophisticated than what S.K. Dey had thought. We will go into that sophistication a little. He had an early experience of theatre doing, which is there. He had Vamana roles and other roles are there, which I'm not going to talk about. After his initiation, he had all these performances. He had done about 3 performances. One was Rukmini Haran. Second was Dana Leela. And third was this yeah, okay, so I unable to remember the third one. It's there in the paper. He had another performances. He Ravanavad. So these performances here, most of these performances happened after his initiation to Vaishnavism. He went to Gaya and then he got initiated by Madhva Sampradaya. Now this Madhva Sampradaya getting initiated by Ishwar Puri. Now there was this contention that Puris had Sankarite connection, and Madhva Sampradaya, he gets into the Sampradaya of Madhva. That becomes a debatable issue, which I have just read that portion because we know what is the differences between Shankaracharya's views about reality, how he has epitomized the truth as a non-difference Advaita, and how do we see Madhva, the duality is the only reality as he is talking about. But what Chaitanya does, he says that both Madhva and both Shankara, they are partially right and partially wrong. And that is why he comes up with this Achinta Bheda Bhed. Now this Achinta Bheda Bhed, this concept of the inconceivable difference in non-difference of reality, is applicable not only into the metaphysics, but also in the ontology of, the daily concept of living. All dimensions of human existence is also applied in Achinta in all dimensions of human experience, we can apply Achinta Bheda. So there, because there is a continuous flux between many realities and many realms, the role taking, the taking of roles, playing of roles became an important aspect of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And that is why this role taking became an important philosophical veracity for Achinta Bheda Bheda, which might have given impetus to practice so much of theatre by Chaitanya. So from there, we also see the Catholicism, which has been already spoken about, Vaishnava practice in Chaitanya. Also, we find this Catholic attitude, like how he has been, while he is listening to Shiva's songs, he himself considers himself to be Shiva, and while he is he is also, there are portions when he is doing a Nagar Kirtan and passes through a temple, Mother's temple, Shakti temple, he worships there too. So these kind of practices are also there, which I am not going in details because it moves away from the from my topic. As a performer, he was not only the producer of his company, he was also the director. He would kind of involve all his members, he would give them characters, he would tell whom to do what. The aspect of his performance was more of improvisation. How he would structure his performance, he would take a theme, any theme, Rukmini Badh. So he will take that theme. With that theme, he will cast the crew, he will give them roles to play. He will practice the songs, which would be intermittent kind of connectors with the entire storyline. The rest of the performance would be improvised. The dialogues would be improvised. He won't go for a structured dialogue. And in this practice, he would go for a practice which is very interesting. He would, whenever he would take up a role, he would say, Mui say, Mui say. Mui say means, I am that. Aham Brahmasmi. Now, this is something that is very interesting. Whether he would do it as a kind of religio-performative goal, or was it something that he did only for the performance and then he would kind of elevate to the religious experience. But this experience of Aham Brahmasmi, which has been in contemporary times, if you look at Stanislavski's way of magic, if I am that and I am that, that is what the practice but that is at a very superficial level, but that was so kind of engraved into the practice of Chaitanya that he would become that. While doing Rukmini, he would become Rukmini. While doing Lakshmi, he would become Lakshmi. While doing the role of Radha, he would become Radha. So all these manifestation of the cosmic power by being the character was something which was very important about his performance. And finally, I had a series of points which would describe his performance as a very contemporary performance known as performance art. If you have heard of performance art, it's a very contemporary postmodern performance. We have people like Laurie Anderson, we have people like Capro, we have people like Yoko Ono in the West who are talking about. But I have found out that each and every step taken by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been so very close to this performance art form. It was living, it was politically motivated. When the Qazi was against the Vaishnavas of Navadvip and he had broken the Mridanga, he had this processional performance from his place to Qazi's place, and the entire performance was designed. Who would be in the front? Who would be there at the back? There was installations at every house, which is performance art. If you look at performance art, we are talking about that. So I have categorically said that every element of performance art was there in Chaitanya's art. It is unfortunate that we have not followed and we have not gone into exploring Chaitanya further. The last thing which was very important, but which I won't go deep into, I'll just read out one paragraph, sir. I'll just read out one paragraph. is the concluding paragraph. I was talking about how he could have influenced performance, but how performance became also an important part of the Vaishnava philosophy, how they were mutually kind of helping each other, supporting each other, making it productive. That is also a very important question, wherein I find that rasa theory playing a very important role in formulating bhakti rasa. And especially if you look at Raganuga Bhakti Sadhana, this is based on Natya Shastra's rasa theory. And it has been proposed by Rupa Goswami in his phenomenal book in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and later other books also. They talk about how rasa was formulated in bhakti form, how bhakti became a ras. So I'm just reading that last paragraph as I promised, sir. Rupa states that the emotion called love, rati, is the play of the great power Mahashakti, which is the Ladini Shakti, the power of infinite bliss, and participates in the inconceivable essential nature of God, Achinta Swarupa. The aim of a Gaudiya Vaishnava is to participate, produce bhakti in the aspect of God defined as love or infinite bliss. Since emotion plays an important role in the participation in the aspects of Krishna's life, Rupa finds rasa to be useful in explaining the process of bhakti. It has further been explained that how he formulates that entire bhakti thing. The other thing is that when in practice there were two different schools. One was by Rupa Kaviraj and other was by Vishwanatha. Vishwanatha thought that bhakti should be practiced mentally, but Rupa Kaviraj thought that it should be practiced physically, by physically imitating the Siddha Rupa. Like in the Sadhaka Rupa, you should copy and imitate and act out the roles of the Siddha Rupa. The Siddha Rupas were the characters from Gokul. They were people like Sudama, they were people like Yashoda, they were people like Radha, the Manjaris, the Gopis. But this physical acting, which became a part of sadhana, was another aspect which came from Chaitanya school. I think with that brief note, I happen to kind of conclude my. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Swami Vivekananda was there, and right there. Yesterday I visited. Okay. Okay. That's an interesting note, sir. But yesterday when I went to this temple, there I found a small position. I think that was constructed by the ISKCON temple. No, there it is written. I'm just saying, I know, sir. That is written that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been there. And there is a Paduka Seva that is happening there. Chaitanya did travel to the south, but whether he was there in Kanyakumari, I'm not very sure. But, okay, sir. That's great. Thank you for this information, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I think what I said came true. He woke you up, and that's a vibrant presentation as always. I remembered my student. He was also a theatre student like him. He, after studying Stanislavski, method acting, all those theories, once you go to Rasleelas of Vrindavan, immediately, yeah, method acting, Stanislavski, everything is happening. Same thing, but this happened to him some time ago. He submitted his PhD also on that under my guidance. So now we have Dr. Nidhi Mishra, Haveli Sangeet, the tradition of Pushtimargiya Kirtan. And after Dr. Nidhi Mishra ji, there is a paper from a person staying in United States. We did not allow any online presentations. So his paper will be read out by Sushant Bharti ji. Actually, poor Sushant Bharti ji, for helping him in preparing the paper, got booked for reading out the paper for this day. Actually, thank you very much, Sushant ji, for taking up that responsibility of reading out the paper. So after Dr. Nidhi Mishra ji, Sushant Bharti ji will be reading out the paper of Alkesh Zaveri. As somebody was saying, I am giving you the happiness of waiting for the end.
सभी को नमस्कार। यह मेरा सौभाग्य है कि मुझे इंडिक एकेडमी के द्वारा ये अवसर प्राप्त हुआ कि इस पुण्य और पवित्र भूमि श्रीरंगम में एक कॉन्फ्रेंस में पेपर प्रेजेंट करने का मुझे अवसर प्राप्त हुआ। तो इसके लिए मैं इंडिक एकेडमी को धन्यवाद प्रेषित करना चाहती हूँ। मेरा टॉपिक है, नाउ आई बिगिन माय पेपर एंड माय टॉपिक इज हवेली संगीत। And as we are moving towards the end of the present day today of this conference, so I think that my paper, though it shares some of the brutal medieval scenario, facts related to the medieval scenario, the prevailing conditions in the medieval period, but undoubtedly it is about the music theme. It is based on the music theme, so I think that it creates some musical environment also. So I begin my paper. Let me introduce my paper. My paper, it is about the Haveli Sangeet tradition, and we are aware, most of us are aware that Haveli Sangeet is a unique feature which is associated with the Pushti Margiya temples. My paper, it also covers that with the course of time, this great legacy has witnessed its gradual decline. While researching for this paper, I found that academically too, not much comprehensive research work has been done on this topic. Some books I found, some research papers I found, they just discuss elaborately about the music related details, but they miss the connect with the medieval Bharat and its effect on the evolution of Haveli Sangeet. So this paper, it tries to incorporate, and it is an effort towards establishing a connect with this history of hardship and struggle and glorious rise of Bhakti and this tradition of temple music in Vaishnavism, particularly in northern India. For this paper, I interviewed some of the serious practitioners also, and based on their experiences, I hope I have added those experiences in while writing this paper, and on the basis of that, I think that it will certainly help in the revival of the Haveli Sangeet Parampara in the coming days. So, first of all, let's discuss the references of Bhakti in ancient texts. Bhakti is an emotional and intense relationship of a devotee with the divine. And most of our sacred texts, ancient sacred texts, they profusely speak about Bhakti and its importance in realizing the Supreme. The idea of Bhakti has even influenced the highest texts of wisdom in our tradition. That is, that we find reference in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad also, where we find this verse, which says, "He who has his highest bhakti towards devtas, and so for his guru, to him who is high-minded, these teachings will be illuminating." So, reflecting upon this verse, Ramanujacharya, the great philosopher saint of India, he says that merely by Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana, one cannot attain moksha. According to him, the person on whom God chooses to shower his grace is that one who is dearest to God. And for this he says, Priyatam ev hi varaniyo bhavati. We find references of Bhakti in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and where Lord Krishna exalts the superiority of Bhakti, and he says, even if the vilest sinners worship me with exclusive devotion, they are to be considered righteous because they have made the proper resolve. So in this way, we can say that unalloyed and unwavering devotion, it has been stated, a mean to enjoy the everlasting bliss of unison with the Lord. Now, there's one more aspect which I want to cover through this paper, and that is about the temple desecration in the medieval period, the brutal reality of the medieval Bharat, and the evolution of Bhakti movement during those times in northern India particularly. So in the medieval period, numerous Vaishnava temples were desecrated and the rich heritage of ancient India was vehemently destroyed. This was the unswerving spirit of Bhakti which helped people get some relief even in those times of distress. In such atmosphere of deep disappointment, many dharmic devotees, they came forward and they acted as the beacon light for the disheartened Hindu community. And so, as a result of that, enormous offshoots of the Bhakti mark, primarily in Vaishnavism, they came into existence, and some worship the Saguna Swarup of the ultimate, and some worship the Nirguna Swarup, but the final aim remained the same, that was to surrender oneself to the Lord. In this, in alignment with this Saguna form of Ishwar Bhakti, there originated the Pushti Marg. As my previous speaker has shared some of the things which I have covered in this paper. Pushti Marg in the 16th century, and it was based on the Bhakti of Lord Krishna as Srinathji. And Vallabhacharya-ji, who was the proponent of this act, he says, because here I am establishing a connect with the scenario of turbulence and tumult. In the sharing his or lamenting over that scenario, Vallabhacharya-ji in Shri Krishna Shray, a part of Shodash Grantha, he speaks about his age in this manner. He says, here I am quoting him, he says, the Malachas have surrounded all the holy places with the result that they have become infected with evil. Besides, the holy people are full of sorrow. At such a time, Krishna alone is my way. So he experienced that in those times it would be difficult for people to practice even the simpler rituals of devotion. So he experimented with a new form of bhakti, naming it Pushti. And Pushti is the way towards attaining the foremost grace of Ishta, Lord Krishna, through devotion and selfless service. So in the Bhagavad Puran, as it has also been discussed previously, there are 9 types of bhakti: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhya, Atma Nivedanam. So among these, Kirtana holds a prominent place. Henceforth, Pushti Marga temples of Vallabha sect, they too became the major centers of this kind of Kirtan bhakti. In the Vikram Samvat 1556, when Vallabhacharya-ji was staying at some village in Govardhanji in the bridge, he received this information of the appearance of a divine Bhagavad Swarupa from the cave in Giriraj mountain. He immediately went there, and there he found that Swarupa and he gave it the name Srinathji. And so immediately a rough shelter was also erected over the Swarupa, and so began the tradition of the service of Lord in the temples in the form of a small child. Service in the form of Kirtan began as soon as this practice began, and soon after that the service in the form of Kirtan began. And so Vallabhacharya-ji himself appointed Kumban Das-ji as the foremost disciple, and he was the first Kirtaniya of Srinathji. Kirtaniya is the Kirtankar. In the course of time, this Kirtan tradition, it was called Haveli Sangeet, as during that time in the medieval period, the term Haveli was applied to the temples of the Pushti Marg in Gujarat and Rajasthan particularly. And in the beginning, it was the desire of Vallabhacharya-ji that majestic Haveli should be constructed for Lord. But later on, we know that during the reign of Aurangzeb, out of fear of destruction, this practice of building huge temple Havelis stopped. Yet the name of these temples remained the same. And the deities had to be kept hidden in the smaller houses of the devotees, yet the rituals of their worship continued fervently. And this perseverance resulted, this is very remarkable, the perseverance, it resulted in the unhindered flow of bhakti and its praxis among the bhaktas till today in its original form only. Now, Ashtachap and the Kirtan tradition in Pushti Marg. The tradition of Seva started by Vallabhacharya-ji, it continued during the time of his son Vithalnathji also. So finally, Vithalnathji himself, he himself was a great poet and musician. He's thought of giving a systematic form to all this. And so as a result of this, he created this group Ashtachap, which was a group of 8 devout devotees consisting of 4 ardent sevaks of his father, Sri Kumbhandas, Sri Surdas, Sri Paramananda, Sri Krishnadas, and 4 of himself, Sri Govinda Swami, Sri Chit Swami, Sri Chaturbhuj Das-ji, Sri Nanda Das-ji. And all of these 8 poets, they were the brilliant poets and as well as singers. And Vithalnathji named it Ashtachap, or in the common parlance, it has been said Ashtasakhas. The poetry is written and then sung by these Ashtachap poets. The 8 reprints of the Lord were the zenith of devotion towards their Ishta, Bhagwan Krishna. So here is another aspect also in the medieval period. Indian music, it saw the stream of music So the river of music, it got divided into two streams. One was the court music and another was the Diwaliya music. And both forms of music evolved into complete separate dimension because the sheer purpose of singing was altogether different. The court music, which was sung for impressing the emperor, whereas the Bhakti music was meant for eulogizing the Ishtadeva. The music that was sung in praise of the Mughal emperors, later on it lost all its sophistication of the essence of Indian spiritual thought and the objective of creating a music that uplifts. In such scenario, the temple music of Pushti Marg had a quintessential role in preserving the sanctity of Bhakti music by the purity of ragas. All efforts of Ashtachap poets were directed towards keeping the perennial spirit of Bhakti alive in its pureness through their kirtanas. The kirtankar showed superior resilience to then forces of distortion and saved music from any sort of undue corruption. The first Kirtankar of Ashtachap, Kumbandas ji, was a popular singer of his times. That is why Vallabhacharya ji, he directed him to offer his Kirtan as worship before the Lord. Haveli Sangeet, it has a corpus of his padas. So many padas of Kumbandas ji are there and which are sung regularly in the temples. The most popular is, here I have quoted, Girdhar Lal Ras Bhare, Khelat Vimal Vasant Radhika Sang, Udat Gulal, Abir Argaja, Chirkat Bharat Paraspar Rang, Bajat Tal Mridang Andhoti, Bina Murali Tan Tarang, Kumban Das Prabhu Vidhi Kridat, Jamuna Pulin Lajavat Anang. The other well-known and the most esteemed Ashtachap poet of Haveli Sangeet is Surdas ji. It has been discussed before also in a paper, and he was blind by birth. But this limitation, it did not become a barrier for him in his path of manifesting his reverence towards Sri Krishna by composing impressive padas of devotion. In one of the prasangas of the Varta literature was also discussed before. So this all I think you know that it is mentioned that once Girdhari ji, son of Vitthal Nath ji, he played a trick upon Surdas ji, and so after bathing the Swarupa of Lord, he put no clothing and asked Surdas ji to sing, and to his surprise, Surdas ji sang exactly as the Lord looked at that time. Everyone now came to know that Krishna lived in his heart and he views Lord with the help of his inner vision. His language was simple yet full of multi-layered meanings which delighted even the ordinary audience. Almost all his compositions are quite popular. The most important of these I have quoted here. So I am rushing through. There is an anecdote from the life of Chaturbhuj Das ji. Sri Chaturbhuj Das ji used to sing all the divine pastimes of Lord everywhere. Srinath ji had bestowed such blessings on him. And one day Kumbandas ji was having a vision of the pastime of Lord in which the Lord was sleeping. So he started singing these verses. Ve dekho Bharat Jharokan Deepak Hari Podhe Unchi Chitra Sari. Look there, the lamp is burning behind the curtains and the Lord is sleeping. Shri Kumbandas ji sang this much, then Chaturbhuj Das ji, he started singing, Gaye uthi sundar badan neharan karan bahut yatan rakhe kar pyari. On hearing this, Kumbandas Das ji understood that Chaturbhuj Das ji, he has got complete divine experience by the grace of Shri Gosai ji. Shri Kumbandas ji was very pleased to see this grace. So these mystical poetries of the poets of Ashtachap complemented the Seva tradition of the Pushti Marg and gave new dimension to the Ashtayam Puja. Nam Sankirtan is the only mean to feel the divine bliss, and being a Vaishnava saint, Acharya Vallabha had witnessed the chanting of Sanskrit verses as a mean of worship in the normal Vaishnava temples. So he thought of trying to replace the same ritual with the verses in the bridge dialect. So here we can see the difference. So in the regular Vishnu temple, the verse is Uttishta for waking up the Lord. Uttishtotisht Govind Uttisht Garud Dhwaja Uttisht Kamalakantam Trilokyam Mangalam Kuru. While in the Pushti Margya Haveli Sangeet, the pad sung is like Jagiye Gopal Lal Janini Bali Jai Utho Tat Bhayo Prat Rajni Ko Timir Ghateo Ayo Aye Sab Gwal Bal Mohana Kanhai. So this is the difference between the padas sung in the normal Vishnu temples and the Pushti Margya temples. So what is important is the bhav of the kirtankars. While singing, the bhav of the kirtana is an important aspect of the display of love towards the Lord. The verses composed by the poets are full of vatsalya, sakhya, shringar, sanyog, viyog, veer ras, adbhut ras, raudra ras, vairagya ke pad, saundarya bodh, etc. The ragas of the kirtans in the Pushti Margya temples are typically based on the classical theme of the Bharatiya music Dhrupad. The usual tals while singing hymns are chautal, archat, chautal, dhamar, teen tal, etc. And Sri Gosai Ji, he set up 9 forms of the Lord to be worshipped by his disciples, and these are commonly called nidhis of the Lord. Nidhi means an ocean limitless. The nidhi swarupas are indeed the ocean of grace. So here in this chart, this I have taken from pushtimark.net, and here in this chart, the swarupa is mentioned, the physical form of the Lord is mentioned, the principal bhav of that particular swarupa is mentioned, and the current location of that swarupa where it is located. For example, Srinathji, the physical form is a dark black stone image carved in high relief of Sri Govardhan Dharan, that is Sri Krishna who has lifted Mount Govardhan for the good of us all. And the principal bhava Adibhut, Vatsalya, Madhurya, Sakhya, Dasya, and he is savior of devotees, beloved of Gopijans, leader of Rasa, and it is located in Nathdwara, Rajasthan. These are the Nav Nidhis. So, Aurangzeb's reign and relocation of Srinathji and other Pushti Margya deities. So, all the suffering suffered by people of Bharat for centuries was only the build-up to the heights of religious bigotry that was to befall the country in the reign of Aurangzeb. We all are very much aware of this fact of Bharat. Aurangzeb issued a firman in 1669 ordering the demolition of every single temple in India. Images and idols of deities were destroyed on a large scale. So amid fear of destruction, many deities of the Pushti Margya temples were secretly concealed and transported to secure locations. A specific case of the image of Srinathji can be considered. The image, this is very important, and it shows the utter devotion of the people at that time and how they saved our deities. The image was initially shifted from Govardhan to Agra and secretly worshipped in the house of a devotee. Another image of Navneet Priyaji from Gokul was also concealed there. Then both deities, they left for Kota, and from Kota to Kishangarh. From Kishangarh, they traveled to Chaupasini, Jodhpur. The priest asked Rana Raj Singh of Mewar, he is the grandson of Rana Pratap Singh, Maharana Pratap Singh. So he asked, he took permission from Rana to settle in Mewar. Rana permitted, and when the deity reached the spot at village Singhat, the wheels of the bullock cart in which the deity was being transported sank axle deep in mud and could not be moved any further. The accompanying priests realized that a particular place was the Lord's chosen spot, and accordingly a temple was built there under the protection of Maharana Raj Singh of Mewar. Srinathji temple is also known as Haveli of Srinathji. The saga that brings goosebumps, how our deity was concealed, moving from place to place and finally reaching to the safer destination, and how the local people and the priests performed all the Nitya Karma Puja even in their state of obscurity. So here is the conclusion. Though this tradition of Haveli Sangeet is 5 centuries old, yet it is the most authenticate and unadulterated style of music, Bhakti music of Vaishnavism. The credit of it goes to the serious practitioners of this art who challenged every attempt of interference with its purity, a vivid lesson to all of us to save our civilization just like our ancestors who ensured the continuity of culture by sacrificing everything. Regrettably, this form of devotional music is on the verge of decline. In this age of rap or pop music, very few people are inclined towards it, particularly the youngsters are in oblivion of this heritage. So, my paper, I hope, it fulfills its intent of being an effort in the direction of exploring and articulating the role of Kirtan tradition in preserving and expanding Vaishnavism in the medieval times in North India. It is also an endeavor to highlight the need for reviving this stagnating tradition by reinvigorating the interest of people in this extraordinary culture of worshipping and reverence. Thank you.
Yeah. Because Pushti Marg and Maitriji not speaking. Yeah.
As per the doctrines, Pushtimargya temple is a very wrong notion, though it has been unfortunately promoted from our side only. But as per the doctrines, it is not the thing. So Vallabhacharya says, Kinesthetics swadharmatah. So it is completely a private affair, and the whole worshipping pattern should be happened in a very secretive way. The Haveli term was wrongly related with Vallabh Sampradaya, and that's why even the tradition, the music tradition, should be known as Pushtimargya Kirtan tradition rather than using the term Haveli Sangeet. So these are the two major things I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Okay, good. Sriranganatha has planned it in such a way that we have got one dance paper, one visual aesthetics painting related paper. The third was theatre, another completely different art. Now music. The next one is going to be sculpture, temple sculpture. Alkesh Javeri's paper is going to be on temple sculpture. What a plan! In a lottery, we could have got all the theatre papers, all music papers also. But all different arts have been covered. So now this paper on temple sculpture, the importance of Gajalakshmi on the gateways of temples is the paper. All Perumal's plan. Andavane, Tayare.
Thank you. That's what I have told Srinivasji to message him. So thank you for. So I am here to put the proxy actually. So I won't take much time. So first I will just read the, few important points what he has raised in his paper. So nothing actually comes on my head. So let me clear this first, and then I will run the PPT. So what all images he has sent. So the paper actually focuses on the icon of Lakshmi, on the Larat Bimba, and as well as the form of lotus, which is a sign of fertility and prosperity. The temples have been an important part of Indian society within the diversity of the cultures, and they have served the society in multiple ways. We know that we have a long tradition of temples being constructed in our country, starting from the Gupta period where we have the full-fledged temples coming into the place, and it goes all the way to Vakatakas, Pallavas, Chalukyas, Cholas, and all those. And art had an assured status in India, and it functioned against a large background which brought together cultural heritage of the whole world. And on the basis of his needs and priorities conditioned by his beliefs and his identity within the social group, the artist had the freedom to choose and to seek resources from the area of heritage he responded to. The iconography of the goddess in early period was a matter of cognition and can be analyzed by specialized means so that the different groups under its scheme can be elaborated and organized into a new visual order. Linking up with the tradition of its choice, it has universal significance in the way it broke through barriers of time and tradition of chronology in the evolution of new form, style in art history. The Torana goddess as gateway to heaven paved the way for Shri or Lakshmi or Shri Lakshmi, listed by two elephants often called by Abhishek Lakshmi, form in India. And the impact of Vaishnavism on various art expressions of India is well known to everyone, and its extension over the pan-Indian in this range, may it be any field of art, music, classical, dances or theatre, or in the regional literature, the non-plastic art in painting, sculpture, it is found everywhere, basically in all sculptures of India. So the visual imagery, sculptural icons, pictorial delineations and Vaishnavite temple architecture has spread all over the country and a mutual influence in the art world as well. The goddess Shri, which is mentioned in Rigveda, in Shri Sukta, later became linked with Lakshmi, the goddess of prosperity and good fortune. And nearly 2000 years there is not much evidence for the worship of the goddess. And then the evidence resumes so that the 5th and 6th century, the cult of goddess becomes as much as a part of the written record as that of the male deities in synchronization with the Vishnu in the Puranic times. We know about the Kurma Avatar story where the churning of ocean happened and how Vishnu accepts the Lakshmi to be her consort, and there we have the episode where she becomes Vishnu Bharya. So, and through prayed as an independent deity in the Vedic times, the Lakshmi was blended into Vaishnavism and became a part of temple architecture and the motifs. And that's how we see how Lakshmi comes into the form of, is being used in the Lalata Bimba. So if we look holistic way, a temple itself is a cosmic world where every corner, every angle, every part and every component generates a cosmic energy at macro and micro level, right from Shikhara all the way to Jagati and Adhisthana. From main door to deep inside the Garbhagriha, each and every component is assigned to special treatment. As devotee enters in the temple, he passes through all the components and connects himself to the cosmic world, establishing a unique dialogue between him and the God. So passing through various sections like Mandapa, when devotees come into the front of Garbhagriha, he establishes a connectivity with the inner world. The door of the Garbhagriha has Dwarapal, mostly which has the goddesses. It has, and we look up, so there is horizontal structure which is known as Radhabimba, and we have various elements like Navagraha, Saptamatrika, and sometimes Ananta Shayana, and Radhabimba is the key component which remains always in the focus of eyes where Lakshmi is mostly placed in the temples. And as the Garbhagriha is abode of the god, like a heaven, and the Radhabimba connects the earth and heaven, the goddess on the Radhabimba is Gajalakshmi, who is the president deity of immense opulence, good fortune, prosperity and splendor. The Gajalakshmi depicted on the Torana is conceived as the gateway of heavenly bliss, where the goddess receives the soul and connects him to Vishnu, grants immortality. The sculptural evidence of hegemony rests on the fact that with the present knowledge of this aspect, it is possible only to give a description of the goddess that the governs significant component, the Torana being the gateway through which the immortal enters to consummate his union with the goddess, Sri Lakshmi, which protects not only the doors and gateways but also offers passage to the laying of the immortals implicit in the lotus blossom connected to the eternal sun. The conclusion of the paper is that lotus is a symbol of rebirth, and lotus goddess linked to water and solar energy is an attribute of Lakshmi. So there was an obvious attempt to integrate a powerful goddess who protected the people through prescribed types of Torana. Torana, as a symbol of the vault of heaven, signified the time-space continuum of the zodiac ring that the goddess wore as a girdle. And a number of ancient divinities which have been either lost or assimilated into the other forms, but Gajalakshmi has endured. The ritual practice that centers on the cult image of the goddess Lakshmi can reveal the culture of a distant past. The significance of the goddess may be fully comprehended only if the various contemporary forms of all the religious sites across the countries are observed together in order to understand the history of Lakshmi through both religious as well as the historical lenses. So this was the complete paper. So I will just run the slide just to show the what all images he has compiled. So this is the most ancient depiction of Lakshmi on the one of the Toranas at Sanchi Stupa. Though again there is a debate whether it is Lakshmi or not, but the symbolism, some historians believe that it could be Lakshmi also. The famous one from the Sri Mandir, the Simhadwar. So these are this is the Toran where she is placed. So basically, person actually is an enthusiast who mostly actually collect all the images depicting the Gajalakshmi part. So he has just put all his collection into the slide, and as he didn't had much training in the historical narrative writing, so it was a tough thing for him to put the inferences out. But still, because it was his, for the first time, so I also helped him out in whatever manner I could. So also in the Jain temples, he has he is able to trace that particular thing. We know the relation between the Hindu pantheon and the Jaina Tirthankaras. These are various other Here's the whole culmination. Mostly the example comes from the Odisha, the Kalinga temple architecture. We know why it is, so that we have so many examples from that particular part of the country, and also from Maharashtra. And also the contemporary example, this is I think from one of the Haveli, if I am not wrong, and how the Lakshmi motif is also used in the Ipan or Rangoli across the country. This is it.
Thank you, Sushant ji, for taking that responsibility. It was a burden, extra burden for him, but he was so kind to accept this. This morning, all of you have seen that the beginning of the conference was delayed because of some technical difficulties, cleaning up and all that. That actually led to this delay in the evening also. So, lesson of the day is that tomorrow let us start dot on time. Then we'll be dot on time for the valedictory tomorrow evening. So let us be all papers also. Each paper, if they are exactly on time, and we start exactly on time in the morning tomorrow, then we'll be your evening program tomorrow or anything will be perfectly all right. Thank you. Thank you. Let us discuss.